Chapter 1957. Dong Dong. Just as Qin Feiyong and Hua Yi finished their conversation, another series of knocks came from the door. Qin Feiyong and the other two looked at each other, a trace of suspicion creeping into their eyes. Could it be Feng Zijuan again? Come in. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed slightly as he smiled faintly. Two brawny men pushed the door open and entered. Qin Feiyong was stunned. How could it be these two? Hua Yi transmitted his voice. Brother Jiang knows them? These two are young noble Feng's subordinates. Qin Feiyong thought to himself. The two brawny men entered the room and closed the door. Looking at the three, they bowed. Greetings, young noble and young Mississippi, Qin Feiyong asked suspiciously. You two are? Although he knew these two, they did not know him because at that time he was using Wang Dachuan's identity. One of the brawny men said, I am Mo Shan, this is my younger brother, Mo Yun, we are young noble Feng's subordinates. Young noble Feng's subordinates? Qin Feiyong pretended to be surprised and looked at the two, asking, You two are brothers? Yes. The two nodded. Qin Feiyong sized up the two of them. He suddenly frowned and said, Are you two here to help Feng Zijuan fight against injustice? No. The two quickly waved their hands. Don't play with me. Who in Sky Dragon City doesn't know that young noble Feng is Feng Zijuan's younger brother? Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. Young noble misunderstood. The two hurriedly said, looking anxious. Misunderstood? Then why don't you tell me why you're here? Qin Feiyong said. Mo Shan said. We are here to remind the three of you that Feng Yuan might harm the three of you, please be careful. Who is Feng Yuan? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Mo Shan said. Feng Yuan is Feng Zijuan's grandfather. I see. Qin Feiyong nodded in realization and said suspiciously. Then I'm puzzled. Feng Yuan is Feng Zijuan's grandfather, so naturally he is also Gong Zifeng's grandfather. As Gong Zifeng's subordinates, why did you come here to inform him? What are you playing at? It's not convenient for us to talk about the details. In short, we are not your enemies. Goodbye. As soon as Mo Shan finished speaking, he turned around and left in quick steps. After watching the two of them leave, Hua Yi turned to Qin Feiyong and frowned. Strange. What is this young noble Feng trying to do? Brother Hua, you might not know this, but Gong Zifeng is actually an illegitimate son. Usually, whether it's his big brother, big sister, or his grandfather, they don't like him. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. What? He's an illegitimate child. Hua Yi was stunned. Qin Feiyong looked at Hua Yi's expression and smiled. Even Brother Hua doesn't know. It seems this matter is a secret. How unexpected. Hua Yi shook his head. Time flew by and night fell. The auction finally ended. However, what Qin Feiyong and Mo Shan wanted did not appear. Although they were mentally prepared, the two of them were still disappointed. Let's go, Qin Feiyong said as he stood up. The three of them left the treasure pavilion. At night, Sky Dragon City was even more lively. This was especially true in those brothels, where the sounds of orioles and swallows could be heard, and people could drink and sing. At the same time as the three of them left the treasure pavilion, there was a black shadow that had been hiding in the shadows the entire time, following them. Hori smiled. Brother Jiang, do you know which restaurant is the most famous in Sky Dragon City? I don't know. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Jade Zither Restaurant. Hui said. Is it very interesting? Qin Feiyong was curious. Of course. There is a fundamental difference between the Jade Zither restaurant and other restaurants. The other restaurants are usually filled with romance and extravagance. But this Jade Zither restaurant is an elegant and quiet place. Hui smiled. Qin Feiyong smiled. For Brother Hua to praise it like that, it must be extraordinary. I really want to go take a look. Hui said, Okay, I'll lead the way. You treat. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. Brother, something's wrong. Suddenly, Hulian glanced at a dark alley and said in a low voice. Qin Feiyong smiled. You're a bit slow to realize it now. Fire Lotus was stunned. She looked at Qin Feiyong and Hua Yi and found that the two of them were smiling. She asked in astonishment, You guys have already... The moment we left the treasure pavilion, I already noticed that someone was following us. It's just that I didn't say anything. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. This person must be Feng Yuan's lackey. It seems that Mo Shan and Hua Yi are right. This Feng Yuan won't let this go. Hui shook his head and sighed. Although Feng Yuan's people wouldn't dare to make a move against them in public, as long as they left Sky Dragon City, they would definitely fall into danger. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have a headache after getting into such a big trouble. Hui sent a sound transmission. Brother Jiang, I want to ask, how do you plan to deal with this matter? Different situations call for different actions. Qin Feiyang laughed, without the slightest bit of worry on his face. Haha. Different situations call for different actions. Compared to Brother Jiang's temperament, I'm really lacking. Hui laughed. The Jade Zither restaurant was also located in the center of Sky Dragon City. It was only about a dozen miles away from the Treasure Pavilion. It was an antique building. Under Huayi's lead, the three of them quickly arrived at the entrance of the Jade Zither restaurant. Before they entered, they could already hear the melodious sound of the zither. The three of you, please come in. A woman in classical attire welcomed them with a smile on her face, giving off a comfortable and intimate feeling. Hui was surprised and asked curiously, who? An elder of mine. In terms of seniority, she can be considered a great-grandmother, Qin Feiyang said. The person he was talking about was naturally Qin Rushuang. When Qin Rushuang was in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, she attracted the admiration of countless young talents. Great-grandmother level? Brother Jiang, are you joking? How can an old woman be compared to the owner of the Jade Zither Pavilion? Hui said unhappily. Old woman? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. At the same time, in the ancient castle, Qin Rushuang opened her eyes, her beautiful face full of anger. He actually called her an old woman? How preposterous! Fire Lotus also covered her mouth at the side. What? Did I say something wrong? Hui looked at the two suspiciously. No. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Just as he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang seemed to have noticed something and looked down at the door on the first floor. Fire Lotus and Hui also looked down and saw a 25 or 26-year-old black-clothed youth walking into the first floor of the hall. It should be him, Hui murmured. Qin Feiyang nodded. The black-clothed youth's cultivation was not ordinary. He was a greater tier war god. After entering the hall, the black-clothed youth looked around with an expressionless face, then found a private room on the first floor and drank silently. However, his eyes would occasionally glance at Qin Feiyang and the other two. Fire Lotus's eyes flashed coldly and said, although it's not a threat to us now, it doesn't feel good to be watched like this. No rush. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked Hui, Brother Hua, how do you usually earn soul stones? Soul stones? Hui was stunned. He picked up his wine cup and drank it in one gulp, then sighed. It's not that easy to earn soul stones. Why do you say that? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You saw it too. Even the Treasure Pavilion uses divine crystals to trade, so it's very difficult to earn soul stones. Hui said. Qin Feiyang frowned. There must be a way, right? With enough soul stones, everyone's strength would be able to increase quickly, so no matter what, they had to get soul stones. Soul stones are priceless. Even if there are, no one will sell them. Take the Treasure Pavilion for example. As far as I know, not only do they have soul stones, but they also have soul veins. But they don't use soul stones to trade. Unless there's some treasure that they value, Hui said. Literature Museum. Chapter 1958. Important things. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and muttered to himself. Hui smiled and said, of course there's a shortcut. What shortcut? Qin Feiyang looked up at Hui. Burn, kill and loot. Hui said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Fire Lotus was also stunned. Burn, kill and loot? How could he come up with such a stupid idea? Look at how nervous you are. I'm just joking. Hui shook his head and smiled. Actually, the best shortcut to earning soul stones is to enter Empyrean Palace. Tell me more. Qin Feiyang said. In Empyrean Palace, even if you're an outer disciple, you can receive 10 soul stones every month. Inner disciples can receive even more. They can receive 50 soul stones every month. Of course, the geniuses of Empyrean Palace, such as Feng Zijuan, can receive even more soul stones every month. In addition, you can also exchange precious herbs for soul stones. In the Treasure Pavilion, Even the most precious herbs can only be exchanged for divine crystals. Empyrean Palace will give out missions every day. As long as you complete these missions, you can get a lot of soul stones. Hui finished in one breath, his face full of yearning. Such a good treatment? No wonder everyone in the North region wants to enter Empyrean Palace. Qin Feiyang mumbled. To be honest, Brother Jiang, I entered Empyrean Palace for soul stones. Hui sighed. It makes sense. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Are there any other forces in the North region besides Empyrean Palace? Yes. That force is the Treasure Pavilion. Don't underestimate the Treasure Pavilion just because it's a trading place. It's not only in the North region but also in the East Tomb, West Desert, Southern Wilderness, and even the Divine Land. So, even the giants of Empyrean Palace are afraid of the Treasure Pavilion, Hui said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang said, No wonder Shangguanqiu dared to scold Feng Zijuan. Shangguanqiu can't be underestimated. Although she's only the manager of the Treasure Pavilion, her master is the famous Treasure Pavilion master. In terms of status, Feng Zijuan is like this in front of her. Hui stretched out his pinky and smiled. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. Frankly speaking, before this they did not think that Shangguanqiu was that great. But who would have thought that his status would be so high? Being the disciple of the pavilion master of the Treasure Pavilion was not something that Feng Zijuan could compare to. Wait, Nine Heavens Palace's monthly expenses are so high. Where did they get so many soul stones? Qin Feiyang suspiciously looked at Hui. Of course it's the soul line. Rumor has it that half of the soul lines in the northern region are in Nine Heaven Palace. How many soul stones do you think they have? Hui said. This is too shocking. Qin Feiyang was shocked and asked, Then who has these soul veins? All the resources of Nine Heavens Palace are controlled by the Resource Hall Master. Hui said. The meaning was obvious. It was Feng Yuan who controlled the soul lines. Brother, if we get these soul lines, do you think we won't have to worry about soul stones for the rest of our lives? Fire Lotus whispered. Qin Feiyang and Hui heard this and their expressions suddenly became dull. Shoo! After Hui came back to his senses, he immediately made a shushing gesture towards Hulian and transmitted his voice. Little sister Hulian, you really won't rest until you've shocked people to death. Girl, you've got guts. You actually dare to have ideas about the soul lines of Nine Heavens Palace? Qin Feiyang also smiled bitterly. Fire Lotus smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyang said again, however, we can develop in this direction. What? Hui was stunned again. Fire Lotus also looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. What haven't I done before? A mere Nine Heavens Palace can't scare me. You siblings are two people who aren't afraid of anything. I'm really convinced. It seems that I have to keep a distance from you in the future. Otherwise, I'll be killed by you sooner or later. Hui smiled bitterly. I'm just joking. Don't take it seriously. Nine Heavens Palace is such a terrifying existence. Even if I borrow courage from the heavens, I wouldn't dare to provoke them. Qin Feiyang said. Joking? Hui was slightly stunned and shook his head. I really don't think you're joking. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. He held the wine cup and sipped it while paying attention to the black-clothed youth on the first floor. Suddenly, his eyes flashed as he raised his head and drank all the wine in the cup. Then he put down the cup and looked at Hui with a smile. Brother Hua, I suddenly thought of something that I have to take care of. Hui was stunned then nodded. Do you need help? It's a small matter, there's no need. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Hui said. That's a pity, I originally wanted to drink with Brother Jiang. There's still a long way to go. Qin Feiyang laughed. That's true. Then let's establish a contract bridge so that we can contact each other in the future. Hui took out the image crystal. Alright. Qin Feiyang also took out the image crystal. Soon, the contract bridge was completed. Qin Feiyang kept the image crystal, stood up and looked at Fire Lotus with a smile. Let's go. Brother Hui, goodbye. Fire Lotus stood up, gently and politely smiled at Hui, and then quickly left with Qin Feiyang. After Qin Feiyang and Hui walked out of the Jade Zither building, the black-clothed youth also put down dozens of spirit crystals and hurriedly left. Interesting. Hui looked at the door on the first floor, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. On the street, Qin Feiyong walked without looking back. Fire Lotus suspiciously asked, "Qin Dage, where are we going?" "Outside the city." Qin Feiyong agreed in his heart. Then he became silent. His eyes were sparkling. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyong's side profile with a trace of helplessness in her eyes. Although they had been together for a long time, she could not see through the man in front of her. It was as if there was a veil covering his body. The black-clothed youth had been hiding in the dark, paying attention to Qin Feiyong and Hua Yi. Soon, the West City Gate entered Qin Feiyong's line of sight. Qin Feiyong did not stop and went straight out of the city. And the guards did not check the people who went out of the city. After leaving the city, Qin Feiyong glanced at the mountains in front of him, and then took Fire Lotus and sped up, passing through the plains without looking back, and disappeared into the mountains and forests. The black-clothed youth also followed all the way into the forest. However, he found that the person was actually gone. He jumped up and stood on the branch of a big tree, scanning the dense forest in front of him, and gradually frowned. Where was the person? Why was he gone? After following for so long, you must be tired. But suddenly, a cold voice sounded behind the black-clothed youth. The black-clothed youth was startled, and his whole body was dripping with cold sweat. But before he could react, a wisp of blood like lightning pierced through his lower abdomen, and blood gushed out. Then, a person appeared in front of him. It was Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong raised his arm, and without any explanation, grabbed the black-clothed youth's neck and coldly snorted. "Isn't it just humiliating, Zijuan? Is there a need to be so haunting?" Before entering the forest, he immediately took Fire Lotus and entered the Black Tortoise world. And this time he went out of the city to deal with this person, because he did not want to be too passive. The black-clothed youth was flustered. But suddenly, the black-clothed youth stared at the void behind Qin Feiyong, and shouted, "Be careful. You want to trick me with your insignificant skills?" Qin Feiyong sneered. But just as he finished speaking, a fatal crisis appeared in his heart. There's still someone else? His eyes darkened and he turned his head to look. Behind him, there were actually two black-clothed men. The two black-clothed men each held a dagger that shone with a cold light, and were stabbing towards his back. And there was no aura at all, like two ghosts. "Die!" The two black-clothed men laughed, and their eyes were filled with ferocity. At such a close distance, it was expected that this person would not be able to react. However, they underestimated Qin Feiyong. "Humph!" Qin Feiyong coldly snorted, let go of the black-clothed youth, and smashed the two daggers with his backhand. Clang! Accompanied by two deafening noises, under the incredulous gaze of the two black-clothed men, the two daggers in just an instant were shattered one after another. The black-clothed youth landed on the ground, and when he saw this scene, his face was also filled with disbelief. Those two daggers at first glance were divine artifacts. He actually shattered divine artifacts with his bare hands? How terrifying was this person's physical body? "How dare you sneak attack me, you're courting death." Qin Feiyong turned to look at the two black-clothed men. His eyes filled with a murderous aura that could not be dispersed. "The one courting death is you." After the two black-clothed men calmed down, their eyes also flashed with a fierce light. Boom! Following closely, two terrifying divine auras appeared. Qin Feiyong sized up the two of them, and said in surprise, "Perfect war gods? It's good that you know. If you don't want to die too miserably, then obediently let us capture you." The two of them laughed sinisterly and leaped towards Qin Feiyong. "Hurry up and leave," the black-clothed youth reminded. "Perfect war gods are just ants." Qin Feiyong's face was filled with disdain. He raised his hand and waved, and two blood-red rays of light, with an extremely terrifying speed, directly entered between the eyebrows of the two black-clothed men. "Ah!" Two shrill screams instantly resounded through the sky. The heads of the two black-clothed men were instantly shattered like watermelons, and their souls were also annihilated. The black-clothed youth was stunned. A beginner-level war god, with a wave of his hand, instantly killed two perfect war gods? Was this a dream? And at the same time that Qin Feiyong killed the two black-clothed men, two terrifying auras swept over from the West City Gate. Obviously, the previous exchange alarmed the guards at the city gate. Qin Feiyang glanced at the West City gate and snatched the Chenkuan bags of the two black-clothed men. Then, with a murderous look, he rushed in front of the black-clothed youth, stretched out his arm, and slapped towards the black-clothed youth's head. "Don't kill me! I'm not an enemy!" The black-clothed youth hurriedly shouted. His face was pale. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and grabbed the black-clothed youth. As if he was grabbing a little chick, he turned around and teleported, disappearing into the depths of the mountain like lightning. What happened? After Qin Feiyang disappeared, the two guards rushed into the forest. When they saw the corpses of the two black-clothed men, their faces were filled with shock. Literature Museum. Because I'm Gongzifeng. Gongzifeng was getting more and more confused. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Wang Duchuan. Wang Duchuan. Gongzifeng quivered, looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise and asked, "Could it be that you are Wang Duchuan's friend?" Friend? Qin Feiyang was stunned, and shook his head helplessly. "You think too highly of him." This? Gongzifeng frowned as he kept thinking in his mind. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "You are Wang Duchuan?" Qin Feiyang laughed. "To be exact, Wang Duchuan is already dead." "I see." Hearing this, Gongzifeng finally understood and sighed. "I really didn't expect that the person who made Feng Zijuan lose face would be you." Qin Feiyang said, "This is also a greeting gift for you." "Greeting gift?" Gongzifeng said in shock. "You embarrassed him because of me?" "Not entirely. It just so happened that he provoked me, so I helped you teach him a lesson." Qin Feiyang laughed. Gongzifeng was a little dazed. He shook his head and said, "You are really good. I admire you. Then may I ask, what is your real name?" "Jiang Haotian." Qin Feiyang said. "Jiang Haotian," Gongzifeng muttered, searching in his mind, but he realized that he had no impression of this name. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Don't think about it. I have never been to Sky Dragon City before. As for my identity, you don't have to ask." Yes. Gongzifeng nodded repeatedly. "How is it? Now, do you think I can help you?" Qin Feiyang said. "Yes, of course." Gongzifeng laughed heartily. Qin Feiyang said, "Then I will have to rely on you for the news of Qin Batian." This, Gongzifeng hesitated. "Brother Jiang, if it is anything else, I dare to guarantee you. But regarding Qin Batian, I can only say that I will do my best." "It's fine as long as you do your best." Qin Feiyang smiled. Gongzifeng took out the image crystal and said, "In that case, shall we establish a contract bridge?" "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded. After the contract bridge was established, the joy on Gongzifeng's face intensified. Although the identity of this man before him was unknown, as long as he could help him, nothing else mattered. "Brother Jiang, actually, to tell you the truth, I don't care about myself. What I want to do the most is to clear my mother's name." Gongzifeng put away the image crystal, his expression turning melancholic. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang felt suspicious. Gongzifeng said, "Do you know why I hate Feng Yuan and the others so much?" "Because you are an illegitimate child." Qin Feiyang said. "What?" Gongzifeng was dumbfounded, asking in surprise, "How did you know?" "As long as one is willing, it is not difficult to find out. However, that is all I know." Qin Feiyang said. "Brother Jiang, you're really a scary person." Gongzifeng shook his head, looking at the waning moon in the sky, and said, "Actually, the biggest reason why I am ostracized by Feng Zijuan and the others is not because I am an illegitimate child, but because of my mother." Qin Feiyang crossed his arms and looked at Gongzifeng silently. Gongzifeng pondered for a moment, then turned and walked to the edge of the cliff, looking down at the mountains below, and said, "My mother used to be a woman in a brothel." Qin Feiyang frowned. Gongzifeng laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "Brother Jiang, after hearing this, do you also think that I am lowly?" "Wrong." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Wrong?" Gongzifeng turned and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang said, "In this world everyone is equal. There is no difference between lowly and noble." "Thank you." Gongzifeng smiled gratefully, and then a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. He said, "But Feng Zijuan and the others don't think so. In their eyes, my mother is a lowly woman in a brothel, and a disgrace to the Feng family." "What about you?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Me?" Of course I love my mother very much. Because she is the one who gave me life. Gong Zifeng laughed softly. If you think so, it means that I am not helping the wrong person. Because I hate people who don't even recognize their own parents. Such people are worse than animals. Qin Feiyang said. Yes, filial piety and gratitude are the most basic principles of being a child. Unfortunately, I don't even have the chance to be filial now. Gong Zifeng said sadly. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, Your mother is no longer alive? Yes. Gong Zifeng nodded, and 2 drops of tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. He said, Many years ago, my mother was killed by my father. What? Your father killed her with his own hands? Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. Gong Zifeng closed his eyes in pain and muttered, This memory is the pain of my life. I want to forget it, but I just can't. Every late night, my mother's despair and miserable cries would resound in my mind. Why did your father do that? Qin Feiyang asked with a frown. That was a very long time ago. When my father was young, he was a womanizer and womanizer. Once he went to drink with some of his friends and he accidentally saw my mother. When my mother was young, she was very beautiful. My father also took a fancy to her. Since then, he went to look for my mother every day. Of course, my mother knew very well that, given my father's status, it was impossible for him to truly like her. He was merely greedy for a moment of pleasure. Even so, love grew with time, and my mother gradually fell in love with that man. Furthermore, not long after that, she gave birth to his child. That child was me. However, my mother didn't tell him. That's because my father was already married at that time. Firstly, it was because my mother felt inferior. She felt that she was not worthy of my father. Secondly, she didn't want to make things difficult for my father. Thus, my mother left without saying a word. She went to a distant place and concealed her identity. Gong Zifeng said. She went to a distant place? Qin Feiyang was startled. Then he asked suspiciously, Your mother clearly did not want you and your father to recognize each other. If that's the case, why would such a situation occur? Do you know how difficult it is for a weak woman, to raise a child by herself? However, my mother never complained. She quietly raised me and taught me meticulously. During that time, although I didn't know who my father was, I lived a very happy life. However, one day, a great calamity befell me. When Gong Zifeng said that, an overflowing evil aura soared from his body. This evil aura caused Qin Feiyang to tremble. He had never seen such a terrifying evil aura before. At that time, there was a very powerful person in the small town that we lived in. He had always wanted my mother to become his concubine. Furthermore, he said that he would treat me as his own son. However, my mother knew that it was a lie. Thus, she never agreed to it. Later on, that person flew into a rage out of humiliation. He captured me and forced my mother to submit. In desperation, my mother had no choice but to seek my father's help. When my father found out that he had a son like me, he was also very surprised. However, he still acted. He killed that person and saved me. However, right when I thought that I had a father and would finally be able to enjoy his love, my father suddenly made a move on me and my mother. Furthermore, the reason for that was that our existence was a stain on their Feng family's reputation. Gong Zifeng shouted. The evil aura he emitted grew even more terrifying. Hatred filled his eyes. Chapter 1960. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. There was a saying that even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. However, this Gong Zifeng's father not only wanted to kill his own woman, but also his own child. How ruthless must he be to be able to do something like this? Although he had yet to meet this Nine Heavens Palace's law enforcement elder, his impression of him had already been greatly reduced. Qin Feiyang asked, Then how did you escape? It was my mother. My mother knelt before him and begged him in every possible way before he agreed to let me go. However, the condition was that my identity as an illegitimate child could never be revealed, nor could anyone know who my birth mother was. I was a pitiful worm with no one to rely on. Naturally, I could only agree to these conditions. After that, he brought me to Nine Heavens Palace. However, the reason he brought me to Nine Heavens Palace was not to take care of me, but to make it convenient for him to keep an eye on me, because they were worried that I would take revenge on them. Gong Zifeng said. Suddenly having a son like you would definitely attract criticism from outsiders. Then what did your father say to others? Qin Feiyang asked. Back then, when he brought me back to Nine Heavens Palace, there were indeed many people who asked him about my identity. He had long since made arrangements to tell others that I was the son of him and Yin Hui. However, I was raised outside since I was young and didn't make it public. This Yin Hui was his legal wife, Feng Zijuan's birth mother. Gong Zifeng said. Did no one suspect anything? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. No, because my mother gave me the name Gong Zifeng, which also has the word Feng in it. Thus no one thought too much about it. As for me, I naturally became their youngest son. Many people envied me. I had such a powerful grandfather, such powerful parents, big brother and big sister. However, they didn't know how hard it was for me all these years. No matter what I did, I had to be careful, lest they caught something that could be used against me. Because once they caught something that could be used against me, it would be the time of my death. It could be said that no one could understand how I spent all these years. No one could understand how I felt. Gong Zifeng said in pain. No, I can feel it. I can understand it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You? Gong Zifeng was startled and he looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. My experience and your father's. Back then my father also wanted to kill me. It was also my mother who kneeled before him and begged him bitterly. Only then was I able to keep my life. However, there is a difference. My father killed me, to protect the billions of people below. As for your father, he truly wanted to kill you. Qin Feiyang said. Gong Zifeng was stunned. He sighed and said, I never thought that there would be someone in this world who had the same experience as me. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. I didn't expect that there would be someone more pitiful than me in this world. Stttt fate is in your own hands. To break free from the shackles, to stand out, to gain respect, and to clear your mother's name, you have to work harder than others. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Too. Gong Zifeng murmured. Gradually there was a hint of understanding in his eyes. He turned to Qin Feiyang and bowed, saying, Thank you for your reminder, Brother Jiang. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled, saying, I didn't do anything. You don't have to thank me. No. Brother Jiang's words are like a ray of light to me. It's very meaningful. However, I'm still a little confused. What should I do? Gong Zifeng said. Qin Feiyang smiled. You don't have to do anything. You just have to work hard, be careful and don't make any mistakes. I can do that, but is it meaningful? Gong Zifeng was doubtful. Of course. In the future, I will make Feng Zijuan keep making mistakes. At that time your father and grandfather will look at Feng Zijuan, who is getting worse day by day. When they look back at you, they will slowly realize that you are stronger than Feng Zijuan. As time passes, my attitude towards you might change. Qin Feiyang smiled. Gong Zifeng was overjoyed when he heard this. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Brother Jiang. Please rest assured that I will try my best to find out about Qin Beishan's news. This is called mutual benefit. Qin Feiyang said. Ah, yes, mutual benefit. Gong Zifeng laughed heartily. The next day early morning, on the side of the West City Gate, a large group of people were discussing. In the middle of the crowd there were two headless corpses. It was the two men in black. At this moment, an 8-foot man squatted beside the corpses. His eyes were gloomy. This person was Gu Yong. Lord Gu Yong, do you recognize the owner of these two corpses? The two city guards looked at Gu Yong and asked. Yes. They are the law enforcers of my Nine Heavens Palace, Gu Yong said in a deep voice. What? They are the law enforcers of Nine Heavens Palace. Who has the guts to kill the law enforcers? The surrounding crowd was in an uproar. The faces of the two city guards were also filled with shock. Gu Yong got up, looked at the two guards and asked, Where did you find their corpses? In the jungle over there. Last night we heard the sound of fighting, so we immediately rushed over to check it out. But when we rushed over, we only saw the corpses of these two lords, and the murderer was nowhere to be seen. The two city guards said. Bastard. Little bastard. I have really underestimated you. Gu Yong cursed secretly. Why are there two corpses here? Suddenly, there was a strange cry. As soon as Gu Yong heard this voice, a piercing cold light appeared in his eyes. He turned around and looked up. He saw a man and a woman standing outside the crowd. The man was wearing a white robe, his figure was tall and straight like a pine tree, his black hair fluttering in the wind, and a faint smile on his face. The woman was tall and her hair was like a waterfall. Even though she was wearing a mask to cover her face, it could not hide her graceful bearing. The two of them were Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus. Qin Feiyang and Gong Zifeng chatted for the entire night and only separated at dawn. Gong Zifeng naturally returned to Nine Heavens Palace. Qin Feiyang brought Fire Lotus back to Sky Dragon City and just happened to see this scene. Fire Lotus looked at the two corpses, then looked at Gu Yong, and said in surprise, "Brother, isn't this Lord Gu Yong?" "That's him. Lord Gu, to be able to meet him so early in the morning. We are really fated." Qin Feiyang smiled. Gu Yong looked at the two of them, his hands clenched, and his gloomy eyes were extremely frightening. Why does his voice sound so familiar? I seem to have heard it before. In the crowd, some people looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Wait, he seems to be the one who fought with Feng Zijuan for the 9-Sun Lightning Fire at the auction house yesterday. Really? That's right, that's him. I was at the auction house yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes and heard it with my own ears. So he's that madman. Everyone's eyes changed. Someone who dared to make fun of Feng Zijuan was definitely not a simple person. Qin Feiyang looked at Gu Yong, then at the crowd in front of him, and said with a smile, "Everyone, can you move aside?" The crowd quickly moved aside. Qin Feiyang brought Fire Lotus and walked to Gu Yong's side with a happy face. Looking at the two corpses, he was speechless. Even their heads are gone, what a pitiful death. "Lord Gu, I heard you say that they were the enforcers of Nine Heavens Palace?" Fire Lotus turned to look at Gu Yong and asked suspiciously. "That's right." Gu Yong nodded. This murderer is really daring. He even dared to touch the people of Nine Heavens Palace. Fire Lotus said in shock. Mrs. Right. Daring to touch the people of Nine Heavens Palace, no matter who he is, no matter how strong his background is, he will die without a doubt. Gu Yong sneered. These words were naturally for Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus to hear. It was because he knew in his heart that those two black-clothed men were definitely killed by Qin Feiyang. "Lord Gu, you're right. Who dares to offend a giant like Nine Heavens Palace? But Lord Gu, there's a good saying, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. Some people are not so easy to deal with. We'll meet again." Qin Feiyang chuckled, then brought Fire Lotus and entered the city, disappearing into the crowd. The two city guards stared blankly at the backs of Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus, even forgetting to check on them. Their eyes were filled with admiration. Daring to be so arrogant in front of Gu Yong, these two young men were really daring. In the next few days, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus stayed in the auction house during the day and cultivated in the castle at night. But regretfully, the god of death fruit and Yin spirit wood did not appear. Gu Yong also seemed to have given up, no longer sending people to follow and monitor Qin Feiyang. On the 5th day, Qin Feiyang was still the same as before, quietly sitting in the auction house's 9th private room. And now the 9th private room was like his personal VIP room, because every time he came, he would be in this private room. Dong! At noon there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Fire Lotus said. The door was gently pushed open, and two familiar figures, one male and one female, entered the private room. "It's you two." Fire Lotus was stunned. The two people were none other than Gao Xiaolong and Gao Xiaowei. "Big brother Jiang." Gao Xiaowei ran up to Qin Feiyang, greeting him warmly. Qin Feiyang looked at the siblings, frowning. "What are you two doing here? Can't we come?" The siblings looked at each other, then looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, "The matter between me and Feng Zijuan, you two should have heard about it." I already heard about it when I entered the city." Gao Xiaolong nodded. "Big brother Jiang, you're really amazing, you even dared to tease Feng Zijuan." Gao Xiaowei giggled, her eyes sparkling like little stars. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. "Be serious, since you already know. Why did you still come looking for me?" "That's right. If Feng Zijuan's lackeys see you too, you'll be implicated, Fire Lotus added. Chapter 1961. So that's what you're worried about. Gao Xiaolong was enlightened and smiled. Thank you for your concern. But it's okay because when we came in, no one saw us. That's good. Qin Feiyang sighed in relief and asked, how's the Guo family? Gao Xiaolong smiled thanks to Big Brother Jiang. Everything has been settled. The old patriarch has been buried, but, speaking of this, the smile on Gao Xiaolong's face disappeared and was replaced by a trace of gloominess. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Gao Xiaolong sighed. Guo Sueki escaped? How could you let her escape? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Gao Xiaolong said it was Guo Zixiong who self-destructed, giving Guo Sueki a chance to escape. I've been tracking her for a long time, but I couldn't find her. Guo Sueki? Qin Feiyang was silent. Gao Xiaolong smiled. But one Guo Sueki can't make any waves. Wrong. Guo Sueki's talent is not worse than yours. If you give her time, you may not be her opponent in the future. Qin Feiyang said. This Gao Xiaolong frowned. But there's no other way. The northern region is so big. To find one person is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Gao Xiaolong nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Go back to Nine Heavens Palace. Don't come looking for me in the future. Okay. But there's something I want to ask Big Brother Jiang for help. Gao Xiaolong said. Qin Feiyang asked. Is it about your sister entering Nine Heavens Palace? Yes. Now, Xiaohui is my only family in the world. I can't let her wander outside alone. So I want to ask Big Brother Jiang to help Xiaohui pass the test. Gao Xiaolong said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. I can't help with this. Why? Gao Xiaolong asked. Because if I help Xiaohui, it's equivalent to telling Feng Yuan that you siblings are related to me. This will only harm you. Qin Feiyang said. Then what should we do? It's impossible for Xiaohui to pass the test with her own abilities. Gao Xiaolong was anxious. Qin Feiyang said. Go find Gongzi Feng. He will help you and your sister. Young Master Feng? Gao Xiaolong was stunned, frowning. How can he help us? Qin Feiyang said. Just go and find him. When he asks you, just say it was my arrangement. This? Gao Xiaolong hesitated for a moment before nodding. All right, little Hui, let's go. Thank you, Brother Jiang. Gao Xiaohui bowed to express her gratitude and followed Gao Xiaolong out of the room. After the two left, Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Now your conscience won't be condemned, right? Of course not. I've already repaid what I owed them. From now on it will depend on their own luck. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Then what if they find out the truth later, that it was because of you that their Gao family was exterminated and they hate you? Fire Lotus asked. Qin Feiyang smiled. If that's the case, what's the harm in killing them? What's the harm in killing them? Fire Lotus muttered to herself and sighed. Gao Xiaolong, Gao Shi, you two better take care of yourselves. Time flew by. The sun set in the west and night fell. On the high stage, the auctioneer was still Shangguan Qiu. Today is almost over. Let's prepare the last auction item. Shangguan Qiu looked around and took out a palm-sized metal box from the spatial ring on his index finger. Everyone looked at the metal box curiously. Shangguan Qiu waved his hand and the metal box opened with a click. A terrifying heat wave surged out of the box. The whole auction house turned into a giant furnace in an instant. This is... Qin Feiyang leaned back in his chair and felt the terrifying heat wave. He immediately sat up straight and stared at the metal box. Shangguan Qiu lifted a finger, and a flame flew out of the metal box and floated in the air. Alchemy fire. Qin Feiyang was excited. Judging from the aura, it was a grade 9 alchemy fire. A grade 9 alchemy fire was exactly what he wanted. Whether it was refining the spirit-breaking pill or the Dragon Soul primordial spirit pill, they all needed a god-level alchemy fire. The Nether Devil flame was only at grade 9. Therefore, it needed 3 more grade 9 alchemy fires to reach the god level. This is a grade 9 alchemy fire. The starting price is 500,000 and there is no upper limit. Let the auction begin. As soon as Shangguan Qiu finished speaking, the sound of bidding was heard. Qin Dage, if you want to make a move, do it now. Because with your current reputation, as long as you open your mouth, I believe no one else will make a bid, Fire Lotus said. In the time that Fire Lotus opened her mouth, the price had already risen to 1 million. When Qin Feiyong heard this, he was stunned. Am I that famous? Why don't you try? Fire Lotus smiled. Okay, I'll try. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, 1,500,000. As soon as the voice came out, the whole place fell into a dead silence. Is it him? Yes, it's him. I can't be more familiar with this voice. He's still in the auction house. This is not good. Soon, the auction house was in an uproar. As Fire Lotus expected, no one made a bid. What's wrong with them? Why didn't the person in the 9th private room make a bid? In a private room, there were 5 young men and women who looked at the people in the auction house suspiciously. There were 3 men and 2 women. They were dressed in gorgeous clothes and had an extraordinary temperament. They don't dare to compete with this person. Another white-clothed youth pushed open the door and said with a smile, Big brother Nya, you're back. The 3 men and 2 women got up to welcome him. The white-clothed youth nodded and walked to the window. He looked at the 9th private room and his eyes flickered. Big brother Nya, what did you do just now? The 3 men and 2 women looked at him suspiciously. The white-clothed youth said, I went to find out what happened in Sky Dragon City recently. Did you find out anything? One of the purple-clothed women asked. Yes, there was one thing that was the most shocking. A few days ago, someone not only cheated Feng Zijuan of 400 million god crystals, but also humiliated him. The white-clothed youth smiled. What? Who is so daring to cheat Feng Zijuan? The 5 of them were shocked. The white-clothed youth said, This person is in the 9th private room. So it's him. No wonder no one dared to say anything when he opened his mouth. Big brother Nya, is his identity scarier than Feng Zijuan? The 5 of them sighed. The white-clothed youth shook his head and said, This person's identity is still a mystery. Do we still want the alchemy fire? A black-clothed man asked. Of course. Big brother Nya has always wanted a 9th grade alchemy fire. Now that there's a chance, why not snatch it? The other 4 said. But this person dares to cheat Feng Zijuan. What if we get cheated too? The black-clothed man frowned. The 4 of them remained silent and looked at the white-clothed youth. The white-clothed youth thought for a while and shook his head. Forget it. This person's identity is mysterious. It's better not to make enemies with him. On the high platform, Shang Guanqiu's beautiful eyebrows gradually frowned. When Qin Feiyong opened his mouth, she thought that the situation from a few days ago would happen again. She was very happy, because her treasure pavilion was about to make a fortune again. However, as time passed, no one increased the price. This was completely different from the beautiful situation she had imagined. What were these people doing? After all, this was a 9th grade alchemy fire. How could they just give it to someone else? Shang Guanqiu glanced at the 9th private room and asked unwillingly, 1,500,000. Is there anyone else? Everyone remained silent. Where's Feng Zijuan? Where's the Feng family? Come out. At this moment, she could not wait to hear the Feng family's voice. However, after waiting for a while, no one made a sound. This is a big loss. Shang Guanqiu shook his head helplessly and announced the result. Qindage, did you see that? Now you're in Sky Dragon City. You're a ruthless person that everyone is afraid of. Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly. This scene was really unexpected. Shang Guanqiu must hate him to death. However, this 9th grade alchemy fire was too cheap. The starting price was only 500,000? After all, in the Great Qin Dynasty and the Forgotten Continent, a 9th grade alchemy fire could not be found at all. It could be said to be a priceless treasure. Today's auction has come to an end. Everyone, please come early tomorrow. Shang Guanqiu smiled politely and left with the alchemy fire. The people in the auction house also stood up and gradually dispersed. In the private room, Qin Feiyong entered the ancient castle and took out 1,500,000 divine gems. He put them in a Qiankuan bag and prepared to leave with Fire Lotus. However, at this moment, Shang Guanqiu came to him and reluctantly handed the alchemy fire to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong thanked him and also handed the Qiankuan bag to Shang Guanqiu. Shang Guanqiu looked at the divine gems in the Qingkuan bag, and his face twitched slightly. He said, "Young master, in the history of the treasure pavilion, a 9th-grade alchemy fire has never been sold for less than 5 million. This time you got it for only 1,500,000. You got a great deal." "Haha, this is all thanks to everyone's care." Qin Feiyang laughed. Shang Guanqiu rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Shang Guanqiu and said with a smile, "Miss, why don't we sit down and talk?" Shang Guanqiu was slightly stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. He sat opposite Qin Feiyang and asked, "Young master, what do you want to talk about?" "Miss, you are pure and intelligent. I don't think I can hide anything from you," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "Pure and intelligent. I can't afford to be praised like that. Young master, if you have any good deals, just say it. As long as it is valuable, the treasure pavilion will accept it." Shang Guanqiu said with a smile. "Miss, you are indeed a businesswoman. Then I won't hide it." Qin Feiyang took out an elixir from his Qingkuan bag and put it on the tea table. However, it was not a potential elixir, but a Juku Yellow Dragon elixir. Chapter 1962. Shang Guanqiu held the Juku Yellow Dragon pill and looked at it over and over again. Her eyes were full of surprise. It had 5 elixir veins. Most importantly, she had never seen this medicinal pill before. Fire Lotus frowned and asked secretly, "Qin Dage, is this appropriate? I've thought about it. Even if I successfully enter the 9th Heaven Palace, the soul stones I get are far from enough, so I have to think of another way. Pills like the potential elixir are undoubtedly the fastest shortcut. Compared to the potential elixir, the Juku Yellow Dragon pill is slightly inferior, so it shouldn't cause too much trouble. Of course, there's another reason why I'm doing this," Qin Feiyang explained. "What is it?" Fire Lotus was puzzled. The demon ancestor Dong Zhengyang, Mu Tianyang, and Mu Qing entered the ancient world before us. I wonder where they are now. So I want to use the Juku Yellow Dragon pill to lure them out. Similarly, I'm using the name Zhang Haotian to lure them out, because they all know that I've used this name before. Qin Feiyang thought. I see. Fire Lotus was enlightened. Shang Guanqiu thought for a long time but couldn't figure out what kind of pill it was. So she looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Young master, what is this pill called? What are its effects?" The Juku Yellow Dragon pill can increase the cultivation of battle kings and battle emperors. The more elixir veins there are, the higher the cultivation level. For example, the Juku Yellow Dragon pill in your hand has 5 elixir veins, so it can increase the cultivation level by 4 levels at once. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. What? Shang Guanqiu was stunned and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. She asked, "Young master, you're not fooling me, are you?" Qin Feiyang frowned and said unhappily, "Miss, you're being too serious. I wouldn't dare to talk nonsense in the treasure pavilion." "Young master, don't be angry. I was also too shocked, that's why I had my suspicions. That's because I've never heard of such a medicinal pill before." Shang Guanqiu hurriedly explained. Qin Feiyang said, "In that case, miss, you can try it out first." "All right. I'll arrange it right away. If what young master said is true, I will personally go and talk to young master," Shang Guanqiu said. "Then I'll wait for the good news. However, only you and I know about this." Qin Feiyang smiled. "I understand." Shang Guanqiu nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and quickly left with Fire Lotus. Sitting alone in the private room, Shang Guanqiu looked at the 9 Tunes Yellow Dragon pill in disbelief. If this pill was really able to improve the cultivation of Battle Emperor and Battle Emperor, it would be extremely valuable. Wait a minute. A moment later, Shang Guanqiu suddenly thought of something. He quickly got up and ran outside. However, he did not see Qin Feiyang after he ran out of the treasure hall. What a fool. I didn't establish a contract with him. She stood at the entrance of the treasure hall and slapped her forehead angrily. "Steward, what's wrong with you?" The guards at the door looked at her in confusion. "Nothing." Shang Guanqiu waved his hand and turned to enter the treasure hall. However, he suddenly stepped back and looked at the 2 guards. "In the future, if Zhang Haotian comes to the treasure hall, you must treat him well and inform me immediately." Zhang Haotian. The 2 guards were confused. Shang Guanqiu said. The one who cheated Feng Zijuan a few days ago? Got it. The two guards nodded. Shang Guanqiu also left in a hurry. The Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyong stood against the wind and looked at the image in the void with a smile on his face. At the side, Huolian had a face full of suspicion. After leaving the treasure hall, they found a dark alley and entered the Black Tortoise World. Then they returned to the treasure hall. Therefore, they both saw Shang Guanqiu chasing after them. Fire Lotus looked away and asked in confusion, Qin Dage, why didn't you establish a contract with her? Girl, this is the trick. Qin Feiyong smiled. Trick? Fire Lotus was stunned. That's right. There's a saying that goes, what you don't get is the most precious. What you get too easily will not be cherished. In short, when dealing with a shrewd person like Shang Guanqiu, you must seize the initiative. Qin Feiyong smiled. I see. Fire Lotus smiled in realization. You're waiting for her to come to you. Correct. Qin Feiyong nodded. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyong and sighed. Qin Dage, I feel more and more that you're too scary. Scary? How so? Is there anyone kinder than me in this world? Qin Feiyong laughed and controlled the Black Tortoise realm, silently flying out of the city. How narcissistic. Fire Lotus shook her head, but there was a trace of a smile on her face. Although this man's actions were unpredictable, it was undeniable that he was really good to the people around him. Take her for example. If it was someone else who was not related to her, would he be so kind to help her? Obviously not. Therefore, in comparison, this man was really outstanding. Just as Fire Lotus's imagination was running wild, Qin Feiyong controlled the Black Tortoise realm and took out the image crystal. Buzz! A fiery red shadow appeared. When Hui saw Qin Feiyong, he teased, Brother Jiang, you're in the limelight at the treasure pavilion again today. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly and asked, are you still at the Jade Zither Pavilion? Yes. I've been waiting for you to come here for a drink, but you didn't come. I'm a little sad. Hui said with a look of dissatisfaction. Let's talk about it after drinking. The Black Dragon Lake you mentioned last time. Where is it in the Sky Dragon Mountain range? Can you give me the coordinates? Qin Feiyong said. The ominous light in the Black Dragon's eyes became stronger and stronger. What are you looking for this emperor for? Do you want this emperor to be your mount? Or do you want this emperor's blood essence? Don't misunderstand. Qin Feiyong quickly waved his hand and said, I'm here to confirm something with you. Confirm something? The Black Dragon was stunned. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the flame god power emerged, condensing into a figure. This person was Hui. Fire Lotus was puzzled. Qin Dage, what do you mean by this? Hui has the Black Dragon's blood, which means he fought with the Black Dragon. But you also saw that Hui is only a war god at the Great Success stage, and the Black Dragon is a half-step divine lord. A war god at the Great Success stage can actually obtain dragon blood from a half-step divine lord Black Dragon. Don't you think it's strange? Qin Feiyong thought. Fire Lotus was stunned. So this is your purpose in coming to the Black Dragon Lake? Yes. The feeling Hui gives me is too special. It's familiar yet strange, so I want to understand his true strength. Qin Feiyong transmitted. Just as he finished speaking, Qin Feiyong noticed that the Black Dragon looked at Hui's figure with eyes full of fear and anger. Qin Feiyong said, I want to know his strength. You know him? The Black Dragon didn't answer. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. The Black Dragon asked again. Then what is your relationship with him? We can be considered friends. Qin Feiyong thought for a moment and said, friends. The Black Dragon murmured. Suddenly, his ferocious nature erupted. He raised his giant tail high and smashed it towards Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus like lightning. Qin Feiyong's expression changed. He quickly pushed Fire Lotus away with a palm and punched out. The power of the divine dragon surged out. Bang! Kacha! The giant tail and the fist collided. A world-destroying aura swept out in all directions like a tide. The surrounding mountains collapsed and the void shattered. Puff! At the same time, Qin Feiyong spat out a mouthful of blood. The skin on his arm was lacerated. His entire body was like a meteor as he smashed into the lake below. I did have that thought. However, every mystical dragon is extremely rare. I really can't bear to see them like this. But now I've changed my mind. Today I must take your divine soul. Because you've provoked me. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with blood-red light. The black dragon god panicked and said angrily, "If you have the ability, put down the divine artifact in your hand." Divine artifact? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and said jokingly, "If you have the ability, why don't you suppress your cultivation to the level of an early-stage war god?" Okay. The black dragon agreed without hesitation, and its cultivation rapidly plummeted. However, in the blink of an eye, it stabilized at the level of an early-stage war god. Aya! Qin Feiyong was surprised. He actually did that? Wasn't this guy a little too confident? Qin Feiyong also waved his hand and the blood-red sword dissipated. Dissipated? Is it not a divine artifact? The black dragon's eyes widened. Qin Feiyong swallowed a healing pill and snorted. "Stop talking nonsense, let's fight." Swish. He took a step forward with an imposing aura. Wait. The black dragon's eyes widened again. It finally noticed the purple golden dragon blood on Qin Feiyong's body. How could a human have dragon blood? What the hell? However, Qin Feiyong ignored it and slapped the black dragon's body. Roar! The black dragon let out a cry and its huge body was sent flying into the mountains outside the lake. Boom! The giant mountains crumbled immediately. The earth also sank and a deafening rumble sounded like thunder. Bastard, I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me? The black dragon got up and rushed into the sky and roared angrily. I told you stop talking nonsense. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. Okay. If you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. The black dragon was furious. Its divine power turned into a giant wave that covered the sky and pounced towards Qin Feiyong. The corners of Qin Feiyong's lips curled up, and the divine dragon force formed by the purple gold dragon chi surged out in all directions. Boom! The black dragon's divine power was instantly annihilated. What? The purple golden dragon energy? The black dragon was dumbfounded again. Who was this person? Not only did he have the purple golden dragon blood, but he also had the true purple golden dragon energy. Could it be that he was not a human but a purple golden dragon? Just as the black dragon was stunned, the purple golden dragon energy roared out and drowned it. Ah! A scream suddenly resounded through the night sky. The dragon scales on the black dragon's body cracked and shattered one by one. In the blink of an eye, the black dragon's entire body was badly mutilated. Boom! But suddenly, the black dragon's aura was fully released. Its cultivation instantly soared to a half-step divine lord. Then, that huge body directly crushed over. The power of the purple gold divine dragon immediately crumbled and ceased to exist. At the same time, a wisp of divine power flashed across the sky like lightning and swept towards Qin Feiyong's lower abdomen. It was a critical moment. Qin Feiyong's body tilted and that wisp of divine power immediately swept past his waist and tore a large piece of flesh. However, his lower abdomen and qi had escaped. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and looked at the wound on his waist, then raised his head and glared at the black dragon angrily. Do you want to say that I'm despicable? You're more despicable than me. The black dragon sneered. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. The black dragon said, the dignified purple golden dragon actually pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger, pretending to be a lowly human. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Did this black dragon think that his real body was the purple golden dragon? The purple golden dragon blood, the purple golden dragon energy. Aren't these the best proof? You still don't admit it? The black dragon said angrily. Fine. As you said, I'm the purple golden dragon. Qin Feiyong grinned and teleported in front of the black dragon. Bastard, you still won't stop. The black dragon roared and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath, pouncing towards Qin Feiyong with an earth-shattering force. Give me a taste of my own medicine. Qin Feiyong slapped out with his palm, golden light surging from his palm. Boom! After a short stalemate, the dragon breath turned in the air and instantly drowned the black dragon. That moment, the black dragon screamed. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. When the dragon breath dissipated, the black dragon was already on the verge of death. Qin Feiyong walked in front of the black dragon and said indifferently, Half-step Divine Lord, is only as a... What the hell is going on? The Black Dragon looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. Half-step Divine Lord, although you haven't truly reached the Divine Lord realm, you're already not comparable to a war god. Normally speaking, with my cultivation, no matter how powerful the divine arts I have mastered, it's impossible for me to pose a threat to you. It's even more impossible for me to seriously injure you. But unfortunately, the divine arts I have mastered can ignore the barrier of the major realm. Qin Feiyong sneered. Ignore the barrier of the major realm. Hearing this, the Black Dragon's heart was in turmoil. There was actually such a divine art in the world? Are you convinced? Qin Feiyong asked. No. This emperor hasn't activated his battle soul yet. If you have the ability, wait for this emperor to recover from his injuries and fight again? The Black Dragon said angrily. Qin Feiyong said, for a defeated opponent, I don't want to waste any more time. The Black Dragon was stunned for a moment, then immediately burned with anger and roared, Bastard! Is there a need to humiliate this emperor like this? This is the truth, how can it be called humiliation? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. The Black Dragon was so angry that he was about to go crazy. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, This emperor's skills are inferior, I admit defeat. If you want to kill me, then come. You have quite a backbone. Qin Feiyong chuckled. Humph! The Black Dragon snorted from his nose, closed his eyes and quietly waited for death. But after waiting for a while, he didn't hear Qin Feiyong's movements, so he opened his eyes suspiciously. When he saw Qin Feiyong at this time, he was stunned. At this moment, Qin Feiyong was crossing his arms in front of his chest, and he had no intention of killing him. Didn't you want to take this emperor's divine soul? Why don't you do it? The Black Dragon raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, I changed my mind again, can't I? You really change your mind. Then tell me, what do you want to do? The Black Dragon asked. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Huayi's shadow appeared again. The Black Dragon's eyes surged with anger. Qin Feiyong said, His strength, how is it? The Black Dragon frowned and said, Aren't you his friend? You still don't know? I ask you answer. If you dare to say another word of nonsense, then I will really take your divine soul. Qin Feiyong said. The Black Dragon's pupils shrank and said, This person's cultivation is the same as yours, a low-level war god, but his methods are very terrifying, not inferior to yours. Not inferior to me? Qin Feiyong frowned. Yes. Half a month ago, he accidentally came here and discovered this emperor's existence. At that time, seeing that he was only a low-level war god, this emperor didn't take him seriously. But after fighting with him, this emperor found out that he was a bastard who pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. The Black Dragon gritted his teeth and said, What did he do to you to make you hate him so much? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Although he didn't kill this emperor, he plundered this emperor's treasures. Those treasures were all painstakingly accumulated by this emperor. He didn't even leave a copper coin for this emperor. Don't you think he's too much? The Black Dragon roared angrily. Qin Feiyong was stunned. So it was for the treasures. Fire Lotus walked over, looked at the Black Dragon and asked, Then do you know his identity? I don't know. If I knew, this emperor would have already dug up the graves of his 19 generations of ancestors. The Black Dragon coldly snorted. Fire Lotus couldn't help but bitterly smile. How much did he hate Huayi to say such ruthless words? The Black Dragon said, in short, if you're not familiar with him, then you have to be careful of him. Qin Feiyong thoughtfully thought for a while and said with a smile, Thank you for the reminder. There's one more question. Where can I find the Reaper's Fruit and Ghost Wood in this Heavenly Dragon Mountain range? Reaper's Fruit? Ghost Wood? The Black Dragon was slightly stunned, looked around and said in a low voice, Heavenly Dragon Mountain range doesn't have it, but there's definitely a place that has it. Where? Qin Feiyong hurriedly asked. Then, he opened an altar and vanished from sight. Early the next morning, Wang. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyong's image crystal vibrated. Qin Feiyong awoke from his cultivation and took out the image crystal. Two illusory figures appeared. They were Gong Zifeng and Gao Xiaolong. Qin Feiyong was stunned for a moment, Then he teased, "Your relationship is developing very quickly." Feng Zijuan smiled. "In the past, it was the Dragon King's temple. We didn't recognize each other." Gao Xiaolong was also full of smiles. Moreover, when he looked at Qin Feiyang, his eyes were filled with gratitude. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang pulling the strings, a small character like him wouldn't be able to walk together with someone like Gong Zifeng. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, "Is there something you need from me?" Gong Zifeng said, "The higher-ups have decided to officially start the disciple recruitment tomorrow." Tomorrow, Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. The registration location will be set at the central square of Sky Dragon City. There are 3 days to register. The official test will be held on the 4th day. Gong Zifeng said. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "What is the content of the test?" The content of the test will only be announced on the day of the official test. This is to prevent people from cheating. However, don't worry. We will think of a way to find out in advance. Gong Zifeng said. "Can you do it?" Qin Feiyang had a doubtful attitude. Gao Xiaolong smiled. "Big brother Jiang, I definitely can't do it. However, senior brother Jun can definitely do it." "Why do you say that?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "Because the chief examiner of this test is senior brother Jun's father." Gao Xiaolong said. "I see." Qin Feiyang came to a realization and smiled. "Gao Xiaolong, you should leave first. I have something to discuss with Gong Zifeng in private." Gao Xiaolong was stunned. What was it that Gong Zifeng couldn't let him know? However, he was also a tactful person. He didn't ask much and turned to leave. Gong Zifeng looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and said, "Big brother Jiang, what are you trying to say?" Qin Feiyang asked, "Does Gao Xiaolong know about your matter?" "Yes." Gong Zifeng nodded. "How did he know?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Gong Zifeng said helplessly, "Isn't it because of you, big brother Jiang?" "Me?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "I heard from Gao Xiaolong that his sister Gao Xiaohui has been with you." Gao Xiaohui was the one who told him about this matter. Gong Zifeng said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that after saving Gao Xiaolong, he did indeed talk to Fire Lotus about Gong Zifeng being an illegitimate child in front of Gao Xiaohui. "It's my fault." Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. "It's nothing. It will be exposed sooner or later anyway." Gong Zifeng shook his head. "Although the chief examiner is your father, based on your relationship with your father, are you confident that you can find out the contents of the examination from him?" Qin Feiyang asked. Gong Zifeng smiled confidently and said, "I'm confident about this. What I mean is that there are some things that you should try not to do personally. Let Gao Xiaolong do it. After all, he is different from you. Even if he makes some mistakes, it won't bring about a fatal disaster." Qin Feiyang said. Gong Zifeng was touched and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your concern, big brother Jiang. I will be careful." "All right then." Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. He put away the image crystal and lowered his head, deep in thought. Fire Lotus glanced at the mermaid princess and the others, then looked at Qin Feiyang and whispered, "Qin Dage, I'm afraid this matter is not simple." The mermaid princess and the others were cultivating, so she did not want to disturb them. "Think so too. 9 Heavens Palace has as many experts as the clouds. Why did they let Gong Zifeng's father be the chief examiner? Looks like the examination won't go smoothly." Qin Feiyang muttered. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Outside. On the same day, the news of 9 Heavens Palace's disciple recruitment spread quickly in Sky Dragon City. The northern region was very big and many big things happened every day. But compared to the 9 Heavens Palace's disciple recruitment, other so-called big things were insignificant. In the evening, in the entire northern region, whether it was big or small towns or remote villages, almost all received the news. Without any suspense, many people rushed to Sky Dragon City at the first moment. As batch after batch of people poured into the city, the originally bustling Sky Dragon City became even livelier. On the morning of the second day, Sky Dragon City's big and small restaurants were packed with people. Even if they had money, they couldn't find a place to stay. Therefore, the people who came later all gathered outside the city. Because there was no more space in the city. On the third day, the plains outside the city were filled with people. "Do you know who this year's chief examiner is? Do you know what the examination is about?" Every year, it is only announced on the day of the examination, who knows? But what is certain is that many people will die today. Yeah. Although Nine Heavens Palace is a cultivation holy land, the contents of the examination over the years are too cruel. Without the blessing of the goddess of victory, it is impossible to become a disciple of Nine Heavens Palace. If that is the case, then why did you come here? To join in the fun and broaden my horizons. Everyone gathered in twos and threes and discussed. Central Plaza. It was located at the center of Sky Dragon City, not far from the Treasure Pavilion and Jade Zither Pavilion. This place was more crowded than the other places. In the center of the plaza stood a dozen tall and sturdy men. They all looked middle-aged and wore black clothes. Each of them was more than 2 meters tall, like a small mountain, emitting a shocking pressure. The clothes on their chests were engraved with a flame pattern of a small sword. That's right. They were all members of Nine Heavens Palace's Law Enforcement Hall. The dozen of them formed a circle. On one hand, they were there to maintain order, and on the other hand, they were there to protect a white-haired old woman. The white-haired old woman sat on a chair, her old eyes bright. In front of her was a desk, and on the desk was a yin and yang ring. For every person who came forward to register, the white-haired old woman would take out a black token from the yin and yang ring and record their name and cultivation on it. Then, the old woman would hand the token to the person who registered. Soon it was the third day of registration. It was also the last day. In these 3 days, other than the people who registered, there was one person who guarded the plaza all day. This person was a middle-aged man. His cultivation was not bad. He was a peak divine warrior. For the past 3 days he had been standing outside the square, looking around as if he was looking for someone. Time passed, and the sky gradually darkened. 5 young men and women were walking on the street, talking and laughing. There were 2 men and 3 women. Of the 2 young men, one was wearing a snow-white robe. His temperament was otherworldly. The other was wearing a flaming robe. His fiery red hair fluttered in the wind. His entire person was like a ball of fire. That's right. The 2 of them were Qin Feiyang and Hui. Of the 3 women beside them, one was wearing a mask, wearing a light yellow dress, her black hair fluttering in the wind, looking somewhat mysterious. This person was Fire Lotus without a doubt. The other 2 women were both wearing light golden long dresses. They were tall and slender, and had a graceful bearing. Moreover, they all had a devastatingly beautiful face. But the difference was that the woman on the left had a head of wavy golden hair, like a waterfall, extremely dazzling. In front of outsiders she was like a goddess, sacred and inviolable. However, in front of Qin Feiyang, she showed a timid side, firmly holding onto Qin Feiyang's hand, her face glowing with happiness. There was no suspense. The only person who could be so close to Qin Feiyang was naturally the mermaid princess. And the woman on the right gave off a noble aura. Her dark eyes were like black gems, crystal clear without any impurities. With her peerless beauty and exquisite figure, no matter where she went, she would attract a lot of stunned gazes. That's right. She was Qin Rushuang. Every frown, every smile, every movement exuded endless charm. Literature Center. Chapter 1965. Hui glanced at the mermaid princess and Qin Rushuang, and then at Fire Lotus. He shook his head and smiled. Brother Jiang, I really envy you. Envy me for what? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Isn't that obvious? Look at the 3 beside you. Which one of them isn't a peerless beauty? Look at the men around you. They look like pigs and their eyes look like they can't wait to kill you. Hui said. Qin Feiyang heard him and scanned the crowd around him. Sure enough, basically all the men were glaring at him fiercely, as if they hated him for stealing their wives. And along the way, there were people who came to hit on him from time to time. Actually, I'm also helpless. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Hui's face twitched. He was speechless. You're helpless? Why don't you give them all to me? This guy really didn't know how lucky he was. Give them to you? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He rolled his eyes, pointed at Qin Rushuang, and smiled playfully. I'll give them to you. Hui glanced at Qin Rushuang, his eyes full of amazement. What are you looking at? Qin Rushuang raised her eyebrows. Hui laughed. I'm not blind. Beautiful women, of course I have to take a few more glances. Is that so? Then tell me, how beautiful am I? Qin Rushuang smiled charmingly, full of charm. Qin Feiyang saw this and immediately took the mermaid princess and Fire Lotus back a few steps, keeping a distance from Hua Yi. Hua Yi looked at Qin Rushuang, stunned. But he didn't know that there was a cold light in Qin Rushuang's eyes. Suddenly, Qin Rushuang grabbed Hua Yi's hand and screamed with a pale face, "Molester!" Whoosh! That moment, a large number of angry eyes were fiercely directed at Hua Yi. Hua Yi was also stunned. What kind of drama was this? Bastard, how dare you act like a hooligan on the street? You're courting death. Beat him up. Then, amidst the angry roars, Hua Yi was surrounded. Those people were truly ruthless. It was as if they had a vendetta against Hua Yi for killing their father. They were punching and kicking him. Actually, many people knew that the two of them knew each other because they were talking and laughing before. But in front of a beauty they couldn't care less. Qin Rushuang retreated to the side of Qin Feiyang and the others. As she watched Hua Yi get beaten up, her face was filled with schadenfreude. The most terrifying thing in the world is indeed women. Qin Feiyang glanced at Hua Yi and looked at him with sympathy. Miss, are you satisfied? Should we continue? A moment later, the group of men whose minds had been blinded by lust turned to look at Qin Rushuang ingratiatingly. Thank you for upholding justice for this little girl. Qin Rushuang said coquettishly. No need, no need. Acting bravely for a just cause is what a man should do. Miss, may I get to know you? I'm Zhang San. I'm Li Si. My name is Lu Wu. What did I do wrong to suffer like this? Hua Yi felt wronged. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and stepped forward to pat Hua Yi's shoulder. He shook his head and sighed. To be honest, you asked for it. After saying that, he pulled Mermaid Princess and walked forward without looking back. I asked for it? Hua Yi pointed at his nose with a dumbfounded expression. Qin Rushuang glanced at Hua Yi indifferently and also left. What do you mean? Did I offend her in some way? Hua Yi looked at Qin Rushuang's back and looked at Fire Lotus, who was secretly laughing, and asked. Fire Lotus moved closer to Hua Yi's ear and laughed softly. Do you still remember what you said at the Jade Zither Tower? Jade Zither Tower. Hua Yi was stunned and asked suspiciously, What did I say? You forgot so quickly. Let me remind you. At that time you said that a certain woman was an old woman. Fire Lotus chuckled and turned to chase after Qin Feiyang and the other two. Old woman? Did I say something like that? I don't think so. Hua Yi scratched his head, his face full of suspicion. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He quivered and looked up at Qin Rushuang's back. Could she be that woman who could play the zither, and was at the level of a great-grandmother? How is this possible? Great-grandmother and so young? So beautiful? Hua Yi stood there in shock, unable to recover for a long time. Brother Hua, if you don't hurry up, the people from Empyrean Palace might have to pack up. Qin Feiyang's voice rang out. Hua Yi came back to his senses and shook his head with a bitter smile. Trouble comes from careless talk. How could he have thought that a casual sentence would cause him to suffer like this? He's Zhang Haotian. So he's also preparing to enter Empyrean Palace. Looks like we'll have another formidable opponent this time. It doesn't matter if he's a formidable opponent. What annoys me the most is that he has such a beautiful woman by his side. And there's more than one. Gosh, it's really a few fresh flowers inserted in a pile of cow dung. After knowing Qin Feiyang's identity, no one dared to come and harass him. However, they all had a look of righteous indignation. Soon, the central square entered the sight of Qin Feiyang and the others. At this moment, there were many young talents in the square. Each of them had an extraordinary temperament. After hearing the commotion, they all turned their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. He's actually here too. Many people couldn't help but frown. He's finally here. And the middle-aged man who had been squatting outside the square looked at Qin Feiyang, muttered in a low voice, and immediately turned and disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 1966. When Qin Feiyang and the others entered the square, everyone stepped back and made a path for them. Hua Yi said, Brother Jiang, you have to thank Feng Zijuan for your current fame. Yes, I have to thank him. Qin Feiyang snickered. He had become famous by stepping on Feng Zijuan's shoulder. Otherwise, who would recognize a small figure like him? However, the dozen or so enforcers in the middle of the square didn't even look at Qin Feiyong and the others. The old man in white sat at the table with his head lowered. He didn't react at all. After all, their statuses were different. In their eyes, Qin Feiyong and Feng Zijuan's matter was simply a small squabble. Not worth mentioning. The five of them walked to the table. The old man in white didn't raise his head. He took out a black token from his yin and yang ring and said, "Name cultivation. Jiang Haotian, initial stage god of war." Qin Feiyong stood at the front and looked at the old man in white. The old man in white waved his hand and a ray of light shot into the token. Then he threw the token to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong grabbed the token and looked at the old man in white suspiciously. Seeing that the old man didn't want to explain, he pulled the mermaid princess to the side. "Why are you pulling me?" Mermaid princess thought. "You can't enter Jiutian Palace." Qin Feiyong thought. "Why?" Mermaid princess didn't understand. "Didn't you see those guys before? They saw you as a piece of cake." Qin Feiyong snorted. Mermaid princess was dazed. Then she smiled and said, "Are you jealous?" "No." Qin Feiyong coughed and shook his head expressionlessly. "If you're not jealous, why don't you let me enter Jiutian Palace?" Mermaid princess covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyong looked embarrassed and said, "Anyway, no matter what, I won't let you show your face outside." All right. The mermaid princess nodded helplessly. However, his heart was filled with happiness. Because the more Qin Feiyong behaved like this, the more it proved that he cared about her. Hui, great success war god. Hui was the second. Jiang Rushuang, new war god. Qin Rushuang was the third. Jiang Fire Lotus, war god level 1. Fire Lotus was the fourth. The three of them also received a token each. 1 advanced stage war god, 2 low stage war gods, and 1 beginner stage war god. Their cultivation isn't that great, but how dare they offend Feng Zijuan? Could it be that they really have some big shot backing them up? Everyone grumbled inwardly. Jiang Haotian. At this moment, a clear and crisp voice rang out. This voice, everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman in white standing outside the square, panting as she looked at Qin Feiyong. There was also a trace of anger and grievance in his eyes. That was right. This person was Shangguan Qiu. The middle-aged man who had been squatting outside the square was sent by her. When the middle-aged man went back to report to her that Qin Feiyong finally appeared, she immediately ran over. "She's also here for Jiang Haotian? But looking at her, she seems a bit angry. Did Jiang Haotian offend her somehow? Looks like there's going to be a good show." Everyone looked at Qin Feiyong gloatingly. Shangguan Qiu was not only beautiful, but also powerful. Most importantly, she really had a backer. Could be said that almost no one in the younger generation of the entire northern region dared to offend her. Even the top monstrous geniuses of the Nine Heavens Palace had to be respectful to her. And Shangguan Qiu was indeed a bit angry now. These few days, she didn't even take a step out of the treasure house because she wanted to wait for Qin Feiyong. But this stinky man seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth and never appeared again. She was even going crazy. At the same time, Qin Feiyong and the others also looked at Shangguan Qiu. Fire Lotus snickered. "Qin Dage, your strategy of loosening the reins only to grasp them better is indeed effective." As expected, Qin Feiyong smiled. But just as he finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his waist. He quickly turned his head and saw the mermaid princess glaring at him fiercely. Her little demonic claws were also clutching the flesh of his waist, refusing to let go. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong endured the pain and said to himself. The mermaid princess revealed a devilish smile and said to herself, "Not bad. It's only been a few days and you've already hooked up with a girl." "It's a misunderstanding." Qin Feiyong quickly said to himself. "Is it a misunderstanding? Then how do you explain the grievance on her face?" The mermaid princess snorted coldly. "I really didn't." Qin Feiyong felt bitter in his heart. "There are many people here now, so I'll save you some face. When there's no one around, I'll interrogate you properly." The mermaid princess snorted and finally let go of her little demonic claws. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel a headache coming. Then, He noticed that Hui and the others were looking at him strangely. His expression suddenly became unnatural. Qin Dage, why are you and sister-in-law flirting with each other? Fire Lotus looked at the two suspiciously. Ahem. Qin Feiyong choked on his own saliva. Flirting with each other? It's clearly suffering, okay? Zhang Haoyan, I'm calling you. Can't you hear me? Seeing that Qin Feiyong ignored him, Shang Guanqiu became angry again. There are still people waiting to register. If there's nothing else, hurry up and leave. The hoarse voice of the old man in white also sounded with a hint of displeasure. Yes. Qin Feiyong hurriedly responded. He turned around and pulled the mermaid princess toward Shang Guanqiu. Fire Lotus, so your brother is also a henpecked husband. Hui glanced at the mermaid princess and laughed secretly. Henpecked husband? Fire Lotus was stunned. People looked toward the voice and saw a woman in red standing in the back of the crowd with a red battle sword in her hand. But she was wearing a mask so they could not see her face. However, the eyes that were exposed flickered with a shocking cold light. Shang Guanqiu sized up the woman in red, his eyes full of suspicion. Qin Feiyong and the others were also confused. But when they saw the battle sword in the woman's hand, Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus's pupils shrank. It's her. Who are you? Why did you attack us? Shang Guanqiu raised his eyebrows. The woman in red did not answer. She walked toward them step by step. You don't want to talk? Shang Guanqiu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Wait. Qin Feiyong reached out and stopped Shang Guanqiu. What? Shang Guanqiu was suspicious. She's here to kill me. Qin Feiyong said. Kill you? Shang Guanqiu was stunned. Qin Feiyong did not explain. He let go of the mermaid princess and stepped forward to face the woman in red. We've been looking for you, but you came to Sky Dragon City without us knowing. The woman in red stared at Qin Feiyong and said angrily. Qin Feiyong sighed deeply and said, I didn't expect you to come to Sky Dragon City. Why? Are you afraid that I'll see you? The woman in red sneered. I don't mean that. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Then what do you mean? If you don't want to marry me, just say it. Why do you have to hide? The woman in red shouted angrily. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused a huge uproar. And they're in a four-way relationship? What's this guy doing? Why does he have so many women? But it also shows that he's not a good guy. Seducing one after another. This kind of person is a disgrace to us men. He's a scum. This is really annoying. People were discussing angrily. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. What's going on? Chapter 1967. Qin Feiyong looked at the lady in red and frowned. Let's talk in private. Afraid of embarrassing yourself? You're afraid, but I'm not. We have to make it clear in front of everyone today so that everyone knows what kind of person you are. The lady in red laughed angrily. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice, Don't be unreasonable, okay? How dare you say I'm unreasonable? The lady in red was furious. She raised the battle sword in her hand and slashed towards Qin Feiyong. Boom! But at this moment, the old man in white sitting in the middle of the square suddenly released a powerful aura. He stared at Qin Feiyong and the others and shouted, This is Sky Dragon City. No violence is allowed. If you have a grudge, go outside the city and settle it. Feeling the white-clothed old man's terrifying majesty, a trace of fear crept into the red-clothed woman's eyes. Qin Feiyong's pupils shrank. The aura of the old man in white had already surpassed that of a war god. Let's go outside the city. Shang Guanqiu waved his hand impatiently and opened a teleportation altar. Outside the city, in the sky above a forest, Qin Feiyong and the others appeared one after another. The lady in red also followed. Once she appeared, without saying anything, she slashed towards Qin Feiyong with the battle sword in her hand. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. He teleported and dodged to the side. Why are you dodging? The lady in red was furious. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice, Some things are not as simple as you think. Then tell me, how complicated is it? The lady in red roared and waved her battle sword crazily. Qin Feiyong did not fight back. He kept dodging. Hui asked suspiciously, Fire Lotus, who is she? Why does she hate Brother Jiang so much? It's a long story. Fire Lotus sighed deeply. She looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "She has lost her mind. Let her calm down first." "Shut up. This is between us. What does it have to do with you?" The woman in red said angrily. Fire Lotus said, "Some things aren't as simple as you think." "It's not simple. He has so many women by his side. Even the manager of the treasure pavilion is his woman. How could he possibly fall for me?" The woman in red sneered. "When did I become his woman? Can you stop talking nonsense?" Shang Guanqiu said angrily. What did this have to do with her? Why did she have to drag her into this? "You do need to calm down." Qin Feiyong suddenly used the movement character art and landed behind the red-robed woman, slapping the back of her head with his palm. The woman in red fainted on the spot. The sword in his hand also flew out. So fast. Shang Guanqiu's pupils contracted. Even she had not been able to catch a glimpse of Qin Feiyong at that moment. In the meantime, Fire Lotus stepped forward and hugged the woman in red. She grabbed her sword and looked up at Qin Feiyong asking, "What should we do?" "I don't know either." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "Then let's find a place to let her sleep for a while," Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Fire Lotus looked around and fixed her eyes on a mountain peak in the distance. She then flew toward the peak with the woman in red in her arms. Sigh. Qin Feiyong sighed and landed beside the mermaid princess. He looked at Hua Yi and said with a smile, "Brother Hua, I have something to deal with. You go back to the Yuqin Tower first. We'll meet outside the city tomorrow morning." "Okay." Hua Yi nodded and left alone. After Hua Yi left, Shang Guanqiu looked back at Qin Feiyong and said, "Zhang Haotian, I've realized that anything related to you is not a good thing. I didn't ask you to come. You can leave now. I won't stop you." Qin Feiyong said lightly. "You," Shang Guanqiu stared at Qin Feiyong angrily. Qin Feiyong ignored him. He grabbed the mermaid princess' hand and said with a smile, "Don't get me wrong. She came to me because she has business to discuss. But it seems that we can't talk about it now." "Who said we can't talk about it?" Shang Guanqiu said hurriedly, "Tell me, how many divine gems do you need to sell me the formula of the Juka Yellow Dragon Elixir?" "Divine gems?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and said with a smile, "Steward, are you sure? How can the formula of this elixir be bought with divine gems? Besides, I don't plan to sell it to you." Shang Guanqiu frowned and said, "If you don't want to sell it, why did you give me the elixir?" Qin Feiyong said, "I gave you the elixir to let you know the value of this elixir. I believe you've tried it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to me in person." "Yes, I've tried it. It's exactly as you said." Shang Guanqiu nodded. Qin Feiyong said, "In that case, as a shrewd businessman, you should know that it's impossible for me to sell you the formula. Then tell me, what's your plan?" Shang Guanqiu asked. Her face was full of disappointment. In fact, she had expected that it would be impossible to get the formula. However, the formula of this elixir was too tempting. Therefore, she had a glimmer of hope. Now that her hope was dashed, she could only settle for the next best thing. "My plan," Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said with a smile, "Actually, I'm very easy to satisfy. Let's work together." "Work together?" Shang Guanqiu frowned. "Yes, we'll work together and share the benefits equally," Qin Feiyong said. "If that's the case, it'll involve a lot of problems. How are we going to split the benefits? Who will provide the herbs? Also, if you don't want divine gems, what do you want?" "Wait," Shang Guanqiu said. Qin Feiyong said, "I don't care about divine gems. I want soul stones." "Soul stones?" Shang Guanqiu raised his eyebrows immediately. "I know that the treasure school doesn't use soul stones for transactions. However, if you want to work with me, you have to use soul stones. There's no room for negotiation." Qin Feiyong said, "You're going too far." Shang Guanqiu was very dissatisfied. "Then forget it," Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. Shang Guanqiu was quite angry. "Young Master Jiang, you have to think carefully. If you leave the treasure school, even if you have the formula, it's not worth much." "Is that so?" Qin Feiyong laughed. "Don't you know? The treasure school has branches in all the big and small towns in the entire northern region. In other words, the resources of the northern region are basically under the control of the treasure school. As long as the treasure school says the word, no one will sell you the herbs. Without the herbs, what's the value of your Juka Yellow Dragon elixir? Shang Guanqiu joked. From the beginning, she realized that she was in a passive position, so she wanted to take advantage of this to take the initiative. I won't doubt the ability of the treasure school. However, the treasure school is not the only one in the northern region. There's also the Ninth Heaven Palace. I believe that the Ninth Heaven Palace won't listen to the orders of the treasure school, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. This bastard. Shang Guanqiu cursed in her heart. Why was he so difficult to deal with? Indeed, although the treasure school was powerful, it could not interfere in the affairs of the Ninth Heaven Palace. Think about it carefully. We'll talk when you've made up your mind. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. He turned and led the mermaid princess and Qin Rushuang to the peak of the mountain where the fire lotus was located. Wait, seeing this, Shang Guanqiu was very anxious. However, she swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She lowered her head, feeling extremely irritated. Whoosh! Just as Qin Feiyong and the others left, a young man in purple suddenly appeared in front of Shang Guanqiu. Shang Guanqiu was stunned. She looked up at the young man in purple and frowned. Who are you? The young man in purple smiled. Who I am is not important. What's important is the elixir formula of the Juka Yellow Dragon elixir. How do you know about the Juka Yellow Dragon elixir? Are you following us? Shang Guanqiu's eyes flashed coldly. I am indeed following you. However, I didn't hear about the Juka Yellow Dragon elixir from you. The young man in purple said. What do you mean? Shang Guanqiu frowned. The young man in purple said, I mean, I also have the elixir formula of the Juka Yellow Dragon elixir. Chapter 1968. What? Shang Guanqiu was shocked. I'm not lying to you. The young man in purple took out an elixir from his chest. Shang Guanqiu took a look. It was the 9-Chu Yellow Dragon elixir. She looked at the young man in purple and asked, Do you know Zhang Haotian? That's none of your business. The young man in purple smiled. Shang Guanqiu's eyes twinkled. She asked, You showed up to cooperate with me? Yes. The young man in purple nodded. What's your condition? Shang Guanqiu asked. Zhang Haotian asked for soul stones, but I only asked for divine gems. The young man in purple smiled. Is there such a good deal? Shang Guanqiu looked at the young man in purple suspiciously. Yes, there is such a good deal. However, all the herbs will be provided by the treasure school, and I'm only responsible for refining them. We'll split the auction price 50-50. The young man in purple said. This? Shang Guanqiu hesitated. Although the treasure school would provide the herbs 50-50, compared to Qin Feiyong's condition, it was like a pie falling from the sky. Actually, you don't have to think too much. I don't have any other purpose. I just want to suppress Zhang Haotian. The young man in purple laughed. Suppress Zhang Haotian, Shang Guanqiu murmured. The young man in purple smiled. Steward, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Shang Guanqiu thought for a while and nodded. Okay, let's cooperate. Let Zhang Haotian go to hell. The young man in purple laughed and stretched out his hand. You're indeed a smart man. I wish us a happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Shang Guanqiu also stretched out her hand and shook hands with the young man in purple. The purple-clothed young man smiled. He lifted his head and looked at the mountain peak where Qin Feiyong and the others were. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He looked at Shang Guanqiu and said, I have something to do now. We will discuss the details tomorrow. Then I'll wait for you at the treasure school. Shang Guanqiu said. See you. After the purple-clothed youth finished speaking, he disappeared without a trace. At the mountain peak in the distance, Qin Feiyong did not know he was intercepted. He bent down and took off the woman's mask. Looking at the familiar face, his expression was complicated. Qin Rushuang asked, Is she Guosweki? Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Although Guosweki wore a mask and intended to conceal her identity, the sword revealed her identity. Because this battle sword was the Fire Dragon Divine Sword. The mermaid princess asked, Then what do you plan to do with her? A cold glint flashed in Qin Rushuang's eyes. Is there even a need to ask? Kill him. It's too cruel to kill her. After all, she was also kept in the dark about the engagement. The mermaid princess said, "Girl, you're still speaking up for her? Do you have a fever?" Qin Rushuang touched the mermaid princess's forehead and frowned. "I'm not speaking up for her. She's just too pitiful. Look at her now. She still thinks that the marriage contract is real." The mermaid princess said, "You're overflowing with sympathy." Qin Rushuang shook her head and said, "If we really let her go, not only will she continue to pester us, but she will also pose a great threat to us." "What threat?" The mermaid princess was suspicious. "She knows our true identity. Wouldn't it be troublesome if she leaks it out? Also, you should know that the Guo family's destruction is also related to us." Qin Rushuang said. "Seems like it." The mermaid princess nodded in realization. If Guo knew about this, she would definitely think of ways to take revenge on them. "That's why we must not let this woman live." A shocking murderous intent appeared in Qin Rushuang's eyes. She raised her index finger and pointed in the air. A streak of divine power immediately appeared and swept toward Guo forehead. However, at this moment, Guo, who was lying on the ground, and the fire dragon divine sword disappeared from their sight. Qin Rushuang was stunned. She immediately released her divine sense and covered the surroundings. However, she did not find any trace of the spatial divine item in the void. "What's going on?" Everyone looked at the void of space in shock. Qin Feiyong looked around and his eyes flickered. "I think that spatial divine item should be embedded with the soul-concealing stone." "Damn it! Who could it be?" Qin Rushuang's face was as cold as frost. The other party had rescued Guo, which meant that they had been secretly following them. In other words, the other party had heard everything they had just said. "What should we do now?" The mermaid princess looked at Qin Feiyong and Qin Rushuang and asked in a panic. Qin Feiyong grabbed the mermaid princess' hand and smiled. "Even if Guo wants to take revenge on me and reveals my identity, it doesn't matter. You're still smiling so easily." Qin Rushuang glared at Qin Feiyong angrily. "Yeah, Qin Dage, we can't be careless about this. What if the person who rescued Guo is Feng Yuan's lackey?" Fire Lotus added. "Feng Yuan?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. After thinking for a moment, he shook his head and said, "I don't think it's him." "How do you know?" Qin Rushuang asked. "Think about it. In the eyes of Feng Yuan and the others, a nobody like Guo is not worthy of their rescue." Qin Feiyong said. "You're right." Fire Lotus nodded. "Right what? We're not Feng Yuan. How do we know what he's thinking?" Qin Rushuang said. "Actually, you don't have to worry. If the ancestor used to have a certain status in the Ninth Heaven Palace, it may be a good thing for us if his identity is exposed." Qin Feiyong said. Qin Rushuang said, "What if father has turned against the Ninth Heaven Palace?" "I'll say it again. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir." No matter what the relationship between the ancestor and the Ninth Heaven Palace is, I won't let any of you get hurt. Qin Feiyong smiled. What an arrogant guy. Qin Rushuang rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of a smile in the depths of her eyes. Because she knew that if they were in danger, Qin Feiyong would definitely be the first one to stand in front of everyone. But then again, don't you think that saving someone without a word is a little familiar? Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Familiar." Qin Rushuang and the other two were suspicious. "I remember that Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor used to do this kind of thing before." Qin Feiyong said, "Mu Tianyang, the demon ancestor." Hearing these two names, Qin Rushuang and the mermaid princess's eyes suddenly trembled. The dusty memories also surged like a tide. Actually, we can't put all our attention on Feng Yuan. After all, we still have some old rivals in the ancient world. They are all more difficult to deal with than Feng Yuan. Now that the name Jiang Haotian has spread, I think they should be showing up soon. Qin Feiyong said. Not only was he not nervous, but there was also some anticipation in his eyes. Can you stop being so careless all the time? Let's not talk about Mu Tianyang first. You know the demon ancestor's methods better than anyone else. With a heaven-defying divine artifact, you can't do anything to him except open up the slaughter zone. Qin Rushuang said angrily. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Hasn't the demon ancestor turned over a new leaf? That's just his one-sided story. Do you still believe it?" Qin Rushuang said angrily. All right. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's be prepared for our identities to be exposed. Qin Feiyang said. Although it was only Qin Rushuang's guess that the ancestor and Empyrean Palace had turned against each other, if it was true and their identities were exposed, the situation would become extremely serious. In fact, it was not that he was not worried, but he did not want to show it. Because now he was the pillar of support in everyone's hearts. If even he panicked, the people around him would definitely panic even more. Therefore, he had to remain calm to stabilize everyone's hearts. Chapter 1969. At the same time, Sky Dragon City Jade Zither Tower. On the 7th floor in a room, the fragrance of tea filled the air. A young man sat beside the coffee table, holding an exquisite teacup and slowly tasting it. This person was 7 feet tall, with a high nose bridge and golden eyes that seemed to be cast from gold leaf. 2 thick eyebrows like 2 sharp swords exuded an astonishing sharpness. If Qin Feiyang was here, he would definitely recognize him at a glance. He was Mu Tianyang. At this moment, Mu Tianyang had already taken off his dragon robe, wearing a purple robe and a purple crown. However, his temperament did not change at all. He sat there like an emperor, emitting a terrifying and oppressive aura. Dong! Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Mu Tianyang looked up at the door and said, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and another young man in purple strode into the room. After closing the door, the young man in purple quickly walked in front of the man and said respectfully, "Greetings, ancestor." Since he would address Mu Tianyang as such, the identity of the young man in purple was naturally revealed. Mu Qing. Mu Tianyang asked, "How is it?" Mu Qing said, "Not only Qin Feiyang, but the mermaid princess and Qin Rushuang also came to the ancient world." Mermaid, Qin Rushuang. One is Qin Feiyang's most beloved woman, and the other is Qin Beishan's biological daughter. It's not strange that they entered the ancient world. I'm most concerned about the white-eyed wolf, Tang Hai, and the others, Mu Tianyang said. I didn't see them, but I think they should be cultivating in the ancient castle. Mu Qing said. Mu Tianyang took a sip of tea, shook his head and sighed. I thought that Qin Feiyang would stay in the Great Qin for at least a few years before entering the ancient world. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Mu Qing snorted coldly. Coming to the ancient castle is courting death. Courting death? Haven't you suffered enough at his hands? You still dare to underestimate him? Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily. Ancestor, please calm your anger. Mu Qing's expression changed as she said hurriedly. Remember, never underestimate him. In the past, it was because I underestimated him that I ended up in such a miserable state. Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Mu Qing will bear this in mind. Mu Qing replied respectfully. Mu Tianyang's expression eased a lot as he asked, Is there anything else? Mu Qing said. He took out the Juka Yellow Dragon Elixir, and prepared to cooperate with Shangguanqiu. This is indeed his style. Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. However, this matter has already been ruined by me. Mu Qing sneered. What do you mean? Mu Tianyang was stunned and looked at Mu Qing curiously. Mu Qing briefly explained the situation at that time. Fool. After hearing this, Mu Tianyang not only did not praise him, but also became angry. Ancestor, did I do something wrong? Mu Qing frowned. Wrong. Very wrong. You actually used divine gems to trade for the Juka Yellow Dragon Elixir. Don't you think this is a reckless waste of God's gift? To be honest, compared with Qin Feiyang, you are not just a little bit better. Mu Tianyang was furious. I also thought about this. Qin Feiyang offered soul stones. If I went to Qin Feiyang, his offer would definitely be lower than Qin Feiyang's. Otherwise, why would Shangguanqiu cooperate with us? What's more, I did this to suppress him. Think about it. If Shangguanqiu really agreed to cooperate with him, he would get a lot of soul stones in the time formation of the ancient castle. Wouldn't his cultivation improve by leaps and bounds? Mu Qing felt very wronged. Although you are right, you can't use divine gems. Qin Feiyang needs soul stones, so do we. You can also use soul stones to trade, as long as your share is lower than Qin Feiyang's. For example, if Qin Feiyang and Shangguanqiu split it 50-50, Then we can split it 40 to 60. In this way, Shangguanqiu will still cooperate with us, right? Mu Tianyang said angrily. Mu Qing was stunned. At that time he only wanted to suppress Qin Feiyang, so he did not think so much. After pondering for a while, Mu Qing looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "How about I talk to Shangguanqiu again?" "Forget it. Businessmen hate people who go back on their words the most. In their eyes, this kind of person is very unreliable. If we change our mind now and talk to her again, I think she would rather cooperate with Qin Feiyang than us." Mu Tianyang rubbed his forehead and said. Mu Qing lowered his arms and said, "Ancestor, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I didn't think it through." Mu Tianyang said, "It's good that you know you are wrong. Think more before you do things in the future. Don't be impulsive." "Yes," Mu Qing replied. Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and said, "Actually, this matter hasn't reached the point of no return. Ancestor, what's your plan?" Mu Qing was suspicious. "Don't we still have the 9 turns dragon blood elixir? Let's cooperate with Shangguanqiu first. When we taste the dessert, we will show the 9 turns dragon blood elixir. When I think about it, she probably won't refuse to trade with soul stones." Mu Tianyang said. "That makes sense." Mu Qing nodded with a smile and said, "Also, there are potential elixirs." Mu Tianyang was angry again and shouted, "I said you were stupid. You really don't know it." Mu Qing was stunned. Was he wrong again? "Do you know why Qin Feiyang didn't use the potential elixir but the 9 turns yellow dragon elixir? It's because the potential elixir is too heaven-defying. Don't you know that treasuring a jade ring is a crime? Once the treasure pavilion knows about the existence of the potential elixir, what do you think they will do? They will definitely think of ways to force us to hand over the elixir recipe. Even if the treasure pavilion doesn't do that, what about others? Once they find out the origin of the potential elixir, will they let us go?" Mu Qing, "Oh Mu Qing, you really have to use your brain properly. Right now, we are no longer in the Great Qin or the Forgotten Continent. We are in the ancient world. In this place we don't have any backing, and our strength is even more like ants. If we are not careful, we will be smashed to pieces." Mu Tianyang looked at Mu Qing as if he expected better from him. "I got it. If I encounter any problems in the future, I will consider it thoroughly." Mu Qing nodded. All right. Is there anything else?" Mu Tianyang waved his hand and asked. "Yes. I saved a woman from Qin Feiyang's hands," Mu Qing said. "A woman?" Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Mu Qing waved his hand, and a woman in red appeared on the ground out of thin air. It was Guosweki. At this moment she was still unconscious. "Who is she?" Mu Tianyang sized up Guosweki and asked. "Her name is Guosweki. I don't know who she is exactly, but it seems that she is engaged to Qin Feiyang. However, this engagement seems to be fake." Mu Qing said. "Engagement?" Mu Tianyang was stunned. "I think she seems to hate Qin Feiyang very much, so I saved her along the way," Mu Qing said. Mu Tianyang pondered for a moment, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Then let's keep her. Perhaps she will be a useful chess piece." In the ancient castle, everyone went back to cultivating. Only Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus did not cultivate. Fire Lotus could not cultivate because she could not. Qin Feiyang leaned against the wall absent-mindedly. He lowered his head and crossed his arms, as if he was thinking about something. Fire Lotus asked suspiciously, "What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed?" "I'm thinking about Gong Zifeng and Gao Xiaolong. Why haven't they sent me a message yet? Did something happen?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "I don't think so," Fire Lotus muttered. Time passed. It was dawn. Buzz. Finally, Qin Feiyang's image crystal rang. He was refreshed and quickly took it out. A virtual image appeared. It was Gong Zifeng. "You must have waited for a long time, Brother Jiang." Gong Zifeng smiled. However, although he was smiling, his forehead was full of sweat. "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang looked at him in confusion. Gong Zifeng shook his head and sighed. "I still underestimated my father's hatred for me. It's really not easy to find out this information." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. "I went to look for him, but he didn't want to see me at all. In the end, I had no choice but to try Feng Zihan." Although my elder sister didn't like me, fortunately, I wasn't wary of her. I got some very useful information from her. Gong Zifeng smiled. Qin Feiyang asked, "Your elder sister's name is Feng Zihan?" You probably don't know that the master of the Jade Zither Pavilion is my elder sister. Gong Zifeng said. So it's her. Qin Feiyang was surprised. My elder sister's ability and talent far surpass Feng Zijuan. In the Nine Heavens Palace, she's definitely a monstrous figure. Do you know the heaven ranking and earth ranking of the Nine Heavens Palace? Gong Zifeng asked. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The heaven ranking and earth ranking are the most important rankings in the Nine Heavens Palace. Those who can enter the heaven ranking and earth ranking are the strongest disciples of the Nine Heavens Palace. My elder sister is on the heaven ranking. We'll talk about the details after you enter the Nine Heavens Palace. Right now, I'll tell you a very important piece of news. Gong Zifeng's face turned gloomy. What news is it that made you so worried? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Gong Zifeng said solemnly, "My grandfather and father are going to make a move against you in tomorrow's test." What? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Fire Lotus frowned. They're going to tamper with the test? But they won't make a move personally. Because during the test, there will be many important figures in the Nine Heavens Palace watching. They won't dare to be too presumptuous. Gong Zifeng said. Then how are they going to make a move? Qin Feiyang didn't understand. They've secretly bribed a group of people. These people are all here to participate in the test. Moreover, they're all elites in this test. Their strength can't be underestimated. I'll draw up a name list and have Gao Xiaolong send it to you, Gong Zifeng said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and told Gong Zifeng the coordinates. Then that's all for now. Be careful tomorrow. Gong Zifeng reminded and his figure quickly disappeared. Qin Feiyang also kept the image crystal and looked at Fire Lotus with a smile. See, no matter who it is, they have their value. If Gong Zifeng didn't help us this time, we would have been caught off guard. Gong Zifeng is really good. But I'm more curious. Who are these people that are willing to be Gong Zifeng's pawns? Fire Lotus's eyes flashed with a cold light. Literature Hall. Chapter 1970. About half an hour passed. Brother Jiang, where are you? A voice that sounded like a thief entered the castle. Qin Feiyang immediately left the castle and appeared at the peak of the mountain. The waning moon hung high in the sky. The surroundings were quiet. In front of Qin Feiyang, Gao Xiaolong hid his presence and looked around like a thief. I'm here, Qin Feiyang said. Gao Xiaolong's eyes lit up. He quickly ran to Qin Feiyang and took out a beast skin scroll. Qin Feiyang took the beast skin scroll and asked suspiciously, "What are you doing?" Gong Zifeng told me to be careful. It won't be good if someone follows us, Gao Xiaolong said in a low voice. Qin Feiyang was slightly surprised. He shook his head and said with a smile, "That's very thoughtful, but it is indeed necessary. Tell Gong Zifeng that we should try not to meet in the future. Even when we are communicating, it's best to hide in a spatial divine object." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he opened the beast skin scroll and looked at it. Spatial divine object? Gao Xiaolong was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, "Even Gong Zifeng doesn't have a spatial divine object, let alone me." Is that so? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. Gao Xiaolong nodded. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said with a smile, "It seems that I have to find a spatial divine object for you." Gao Xiaolong was stunned when he heard this. He quickly said, "Thank you, Brother Jiang." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and continued to look at the beast skin scroll. There were hundreds of names recorded on it. Behind each name there was a detailed introduction, such as family background, cultivation, personality, etc. Gong Zifeng said that most people are not a threat to you, only these few. Gao Xiaolong pointed at the last 5 names. Nieyun Qihong Hongping Zhuge Zhang Yunfei Chaojian. Qin Feiyang looked at them one by one and his expression changed. These 6 people were all perfect war gods, and they all had powerful family backgrounds. For example, the first Nieyun was the son of a city lord. This city lord was in charge of a city called Galaxy City. Not only did he have a group of terrifying experts under his command, But his own cultivation was also impressive. Gao Xiaolong said solemnly, other than these people, they have also bribed some divine monarch realm vicious beasts. Big brother Jiang, this is not child's play, you must be careful. What? There are more ferocious beasts. Qin Feiyang was bewildered. Yes, but we haven't found out which ferocious beasts it is. Gao Xiaolong said. Looks like they really want to kill me this time. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath. Then put away the animal skin scroll and asked, what's your sister's plan? Young master asked a few friends to take care of her during the examination, so you don't have to worry. However, I still hope that big brother Jiang will be able to lend me a hand when the time comes. The location of the examination must be changed. That's right. Even if it is your nine-heaven palace, you can't deliberately harm us. Everyone became angrier and angrier as they roared at Feng Wenhai. It is indeed a bit too much. Hui shook his head. Big brother Hui, are you also afraid? Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Sky Dragon Mountain Range is the headquarters of the beasts of the northern region. Do you think I am not afraid? Especially in the depths. A divine lord level beast is enough to wipe out all of us here. Hui sighed and looked up at Feng Wenhai, frowning. What are the people of Nine Heaven Palace thinking? Time passed breath by breath. A moment later, Feng Wenhai finally opened his mouth and said coldly, have you all said enough? If you have, then shut up for this seat. Everyone's pupils shrank. The plane once again fell into dead silence. However, although everyone no longer said anything, their eyes still expressed their dissatisfaction. The location of the examination and how the examination will be conducted is decided by my Nine Heaven Palace. If you want to enter Nine Heaven Palace, you have to accept it. If you are afraid, then don't go in. This seat will not stop you. Next, this seat will explain the rules of the examination. Feng Wenhai completely ignored everyone's protest and continued to speak. The content was exactly the same as what Gong Zongfeng had inquired. Too much, too much. We can't even use spatial divine items. I give up on this examination. I give up too, my life is more important. After hearing the rules, a large number of angry roars sounded. Whatever. Last but not least, the first person to reach the stairway to heaven will be rewarded with a peak divine technique, a peak divine artifact, and 100,000 soul stones. This is a temporary decision made by the leaders and is also the greatest encouragement for you. Now the examination begins. After Feng Wenhai finished speaking, he turned around and left. What? Peak divine technique, peak divine artifact, 100,000 soul stones. There has never been such a reward in history. Are we really going to give up? I'm a little unwilling. The reward is very generous, yes, but you have to be alive to enjoy it. If you're not afraid of death, then go, I won't participate anyway. Some people hesitated. Some people turned around and left without hesitation. But there were also people who resolutely rushed towards the Sky Dragon Mountain Range under the generous reward. For a time, the plane was in chaos. Literature Hall. Chapter 1971. Qin Feiyang and the other three were also deeply shocked at this moment. A pinnacle divine art. A pinnacle divine artifact. And 100,000 soul stones. This was really a big deal. Perhaps only Ninth Heaven Palace would be willing to take it out. Hui came back to his senses and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, saying, Brother Jiang, should we also give up? Give up? Qin Feiyang was stunned. As someone said before, although the reward is tempting, we need to be alive to enjoy it. Hui said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, saying, if we also give up, won't Feng Yuan and the others' efforts be in vain? Hui was stunned and asked suspiciously, what do you mean? Hui still did not know about Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai's plan. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, they want to make a move on us in the assessment. All the more reason we can't go. Hui said, with such a generous reward, even if I know it's a trap, I can't help it. Maybe this is one of Feng Yuan's plans. Qin Feiyang said. What you're saying is that this reward is a bait targeted at us. Qin Rushuang raised her eyebrows. Qin Feiyang said, Feng Yuan is the hall master of the resource hall, so the reward is definitely related to him. I see. The three of them suddenly understood. Jiang Haotian? You really came. But you'd better not go, it's too dangerous. Several young men and women looked at Qin Feiyong and advised when they passed by Qin Feiyong and the others, "Thank you for your concern." Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "You won't listen. No one will sympathize with you when you die." The few of them snorted coldly and swaggered off. Fire Lotus looked at them and said, "Qin Dage, your identity doesn't seem to have been exposed?" "Yes, it hasn't been exposed," Qin Feiyong replied. "Does this mean that the people who saved Guosweki are not Feng Yuan and the others?" Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Rushuang and transmitted his voice, "What do you think?" "There's no need to think about it. It must be Mu Tianyang and the others who are using this kind of trick." Qin Rushuang transmitted her voice. "They're really fast. However, this is only interesting. Otherwise, how boring would it be for me to be alone in the ancient realm?" Qin Feiyong smiled secretly. "Feng Yuan alone is enough of a headache. What's there to be bored about?" Qin Rushuang rolled her eyes. Hui glanced at the three of them and frowned. "Brother Jiang, are we still partners?" Qin Feiyong was taken aback. He nodded and said, "Yes, why? Since we are partners, shouldn't we be honest with each other? But look at the two of you now, flirting with each other and hiding everything from me. Is this how you treat me?" Hui said with dissatisfaction. "Shut up. Who doesn't have any privacy? If you're honest enough, why don't you just tell us your identity?" Qin Rushuang said. "There's nothing wrong with my identity." Hui looked innocent. Qin Rushuang said, "Do we look like idiots?" Hui smiled embarrassedly. "Let's go. For the divine technique, divine weapon, and soul stone we have to get first place no matter what." Qin Rushuang looked at the Sky Dragon mountain range and said firmly, "Sister Rushuang, you're serious?" Fire Lotus smiled. "Of course. Let's go." Qin Rushuang waved her hand and rushed toward the Sky Dragon mountain range. Qin Feiyong and Huolian looked at each other and also chased after him. "Sigh. These guys are really not afraid of death." Hui shook his head and followed helplessly. Looking at groups of people rushing into the Sky Dragon mountain range, those who were afraid were struggling with their thoughts. Empyrean Palace, in front of the stairway to heaven. Feng Yuan and Feng Dahai stood side by side and looked at the void in front of them. There was an image in the void. It was the scene of everyone entering the Sky Dragon mountain range. At this moment, the two of them looked like they were observing the situation there, but in fact they were looking at Qin Feiyong and the others. The white-haired old man guarding the stairway to heaven was still sitting at the side. But just like before, his eyes were closed and he did not care about anything. In the image, Qin Feiyong and the others quickly disappeared into the mountain. Feng Yuan and Feng Dahai looked away and looked at each other. A murderous intent flashed in their eyes at the same time. Feng Yuan waved his hand and the image in the void disappeared. Then, he looked at the white-haired old man and looked at Feng Wenhai. He smiled and said, "Let's go back and report to everyone." "Okay." Feng Wenhai nodded. The two of them turned into a stream of light and disappeared at the top of the stairway to heaven. The storm has come and the peace of the ninth heaven palace is over. What will happen in the end? Just after Feng Yuan and Feng Dahai disappeared, the white-haired old man slowly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the Sky Dragon city. He muttered to himself with anticipation, but soon he closed his eyes again. Like an ordinary old man, he did not feel oppressed at all. Boom! Sky Dragon mountain range. The border area. The battle had already begun. The battle between humans and beasts. The mutual destruction between humans caused this mountain to be quickly swallowed by blood. Greed, selfishness, desire, all of these were displayed vividly at this moment. Too terrifying. This is simply Azura hell. Qin Feiyong's group stood in the sky above a mountain ridge. Their pupils constricted tightly as they scanned the slaughter that was happening everywhere before them, as well as the dismembered corpses and severed limbs that were flying all over the sky. They had underestimated the cruelty of this assessment. It was just the beginning and it was already so tragic. It was hard to imagine what they would find later. Fire Lotus shook her head and sighed. This kind of battle, this kind of sacrifice, is it really worth it? Is it worth it? This is a difficult topic to discuss. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. You still have the mood to sympathize with them? Quickly think about it, how should we go? Hui said. Qin Feiyong looked ahead and his eyes flashed slightly. Let's go a little further and try to avoid the battle. Won't that take more time? Fire Lotus said. Yes. However, if we rush over like this, we will definitely not be able to avoid a fierce battle. At that time, we will waste even more time. Let's go. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and rushed into the forest below, heading southwest. Qin Rushwang and the other two looked at each other and immediately chased. Soon, the four of them rushed to the front of a canyon. After observing for a while, they did not sense any battle fluctuations in the canyon. The four of them went straight into the canyon. Roar! But not long after entering the canyon, a roar suddenly came from a fork in the front. Following closely, the earth shook and the mountains shook. A group of ferocious beasts rushed out from the ground. It was a group of mountain beasts. The smallest of them was more than 10 meters in size. The lowest cultivation base was at the war god level, and their numbers were as many as hundreds of them. With ferocious glints in their eyes, they aggressively pounced towards Qin Feiyong and the other three. You're courting death. Fire Lotus's eyes flashed coldly. Don't attack. Qin Feiyong grabbed Fire Lotus. Why? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Qin Feiyong said to himself, if you attack, won't your undead power be exposed? That's true. Fire Lotus nodded but then said, wait, no, if I don't want to expose my undead power, then I can only watch you guys fight. Won't I become a burden then? What are you thinking? How can we say that you're a burden? Don't worry, I'm here. Qin Feiyong laughed secretly. Just as Qin Feiyong was about to attack, Qin Rushwang took a step forward first. Divine power surged out and dozens of sword shadows appeared instantly. Each sword shadow was hundreds of feet long. As if condensed from ice, cold currents swept in all directions. The world seemed to have entered a cold winter in an instant. The cold air was bone-piercing. Kill! Qin Rushwang roared. Dozens of sword shadows tore through the sky and slashed towards the pangolin beasts in all directions. Divine power shook all directions. Roar! Immediately, cries of agony could be heard. The pangolin beasts who had just become war gods instantly lost their lives. Even the low-level war god pangolin beasts fell into a pool of blood, no longer able to fight. The air was immediately filled with a pungent smell of blood. Human, you're courting death. An angry roar could be heard, accompanied by a loud bang. A pangolin beast that was hundreds of feet long roared out from the ground. Chapter 1972. Someone's here. The four of them raised their heads and looked up, a cold light surging in their eyes. Clang! Qin Rushwang attacked again. Frost sword technique was formed. Dozens of sword shadows rushed into the sky and merged into one. They slashed at the golden light blade with a destructive aura. No! Seeing this, Hua Yi's expression changed as he shouted at Qin Rushwang. Rumble! But it was too late. Accompanied by a deafening sound, the golden light blade shattered the sword shadow as easily as crushing dry weeds. Puff! Qin Rushwang spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered back. I was too careless. She looked at the golden light blade with a bitter smile on her pale face. Stabbing others in the dark is not what a gentleman would do, Hui said angrily. With a stomp, the ground collapsed. He rushed into the sky and his divine power roared in all directions as he threw a punch at the golden light blade. At that moment, Hui also screamed as he was hit by the golden light blade and smashed into the ground. So strong? Fire Lotus was shocked. Qin Rushwang was only a beginner war god after all. But Hui, who was a great success war god, was not a match for the golden light blade. How terrifying was the cultivation of the person hiding in the dark. Qin Feiyong looked at Hui meaningfully and said to Fire Lotus, take them back. Fire Lotus nodded. He grabbed Qin Rushwang with one hand and Hui with the other. Then he instantly retreated. Let me see who you are. Qin Feiyong looked up at the peak of the mountain and said coldly. He then teleported and dodged the attack of the golden light blade. Rumble! The golden light blade slammed into the canyon. The entire canyon collapsed and dust filled the air. Qin Feiyong stood in the middle of the dust and looked around. Whoosh! A black shadow hidden in the dust silently appeared behind Qin Feiyong. Its 5 fingers were like eagle claws as it went straight for Qin Feiyong's head. Sneaking around won't do much. Qin Feiyong's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he turned around and slapped. A dazzling golden light appeared in the center of his palm. Boom! The black shadow was instantly sent flying. His entire arm was lacerated and bleeding profusely. Hey, big brother, you're really amazing. A little girl's laughter rang out. Following closely, 4 figures appeared around Qin Feiyong. Dust billowed in the air, making it difficult to see their faces. Zhang Haoyan, let us see what you're capable of. Another loud and clear voice exploded like a thunderclap, deafening everyone's ears. There's more than one. The gazes of Fire Lotus Trio, who had retreated far away, couldn't help but tremble. Boom! Before he could finish his words, 4 terrifying divine powers erupted like volcanoes in the dust and smoke. What? This divine might, perfect war god. Fire Lotus and the other two's expressions suddenly changed. Zhang Haoyan, die. Another sinister laugh sounded. 4 waves of godly power surged out and rushed towards Qin Feiyong from all directions. Die. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth raised. He raised his arm and instantly sent out 4 palms. 4 waves of golden light appeared and flooded the sky, colliding with the 4 waves of godly power. What? How is this possible? They actually bounced back. 4 cries of disbelief suddenly rang out in the dust and smoke. But at this moment, Qin Feiyong suddenly screamed, and the 4 waves of golden light also dissipated. Immediately, Qin Feiyong fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground with a bang. What happened? The voices of the 4 people once again rang out, filled with shock that couldn't be dispelled. Brother Zhang, Hui scanned the area covered in dust and smoke with an anxious expression. Woo-woo. Suddenly, the wind howled in this area, and the dust and smoke quickly dissipated. Everything inside was presented to him. Qin Feiyong at this moment was lying on the ground with his back facing the sky and his face facing the ground, constantly twitching as if he was having a cramp. Looking up again, 3 men and a woman were standing in the air. At this moment, they were lowering their heads and looking at Qin Feiyong with a look of surprise. Why did he suddenly fall down without any reason? Could it be that the method he used before has some side effects? A man in black said. This person was skinny and had sunken eyes. His long hair draped over his face and his eyes were glowing with a faint green light. His voice also revealed a gloomy feeling. At first glance, he looked like a malicious spirit. Looking at his right arm, his skin and flesh were lacerated and fresh blood flowed out. Obviously, he was the Black Shadow who had launched a sneak attack on Qin Feiyong, but was sent flying by Qin Feiyong. The little girl glanced at Qin Feiyong, then looked at the man in black and giggled. I guess your judgment is right. It can reflect our godly power. It's normal for this method to have side effects. This person was a little strange. She was clearly a perfect war god, but she looked like an 8 or 9-year-old little girl. Her height was only about 1 meter. Her words and actions were also like a child. Just as the little girl finished speaking, Qin Feiyong's body moved. He seemed to have used a lot of effort to turn over, revealing a pale face. His head was also covered in dust and he looked very miserable. Looking at Qin Feiyong's current appearance, the little girl giggled. It seems that the side effects are quite serious. Who are you? Qin Feiyong's face was gloomy as he looked at the 4 people. Other than the little girl and the man in black, there was also a one-eyed man and a cripple. The one-eyed man wore a black eye patch on his left eye. He was more than 2 meters tall and his body was also very burly like a small giant. His valiant aura was a little frightening. As for the cripple, he held a golden walking stick. He was about 1.7 meters tall and was neither fat nor thin. However, his face was pale as if he was terminally ill. A little girl, a guy like a malicious spirit, and a one-eyed man and a cripple. Why are these people so strange? Qin Rushwang frowned. It doesn't matter who we are. The little girl giggled. What's important is that you will all die. The man in black also laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice, at least let us die knowing. Okay, I'll let you die knowing. The one-eyed man opened his mouth and his voice was deafening. Listen carefully. Cough cough, this one-eyed man is called Hong Ping. The little girl is called Chao Zhiyun. The malicious spirit is called Zhu Ge. As for me, the terminally ill person, cough cough, I'm just an unknown pawn called Chi-hong. The cripple stared at Qin Feiyong and said while coughing, really like a sick person. Hong Ping Chao Zhiyun Zhu Gu Chi-hong. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Cough cough. Looking at your expression, you seem to know us? The cripple looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled, saying, I've heard of your names. We're actually so famous. The cripple looked at the malicious spirit and the other two. The malicious spirit and the other two were also quite surprised. One-eyed dragon lowered his head and stared at Qin Feiyong. Quite a few people know of our nicknames, but not many people know of our real names. Where did you learn of it? As you said, is this important? Qin Feiyong slowly got up and looked at the four of them. A trace of a smile crept into his eyes. And the paleness on his face was also dissipating, and soon became incomparably rosy. The one-eyed man and the other three frowned. Qin Feiyong said, Your nicknames are the little girl, the malicious spirit, the one-eyed man, and the cripple? You're so smart. The little girl giggled. Qin Feiyong laughed involuntarily and said, It actually matches your image very well. You flatter me. The malicious spirit laughed. Qin Feiyong glanced at the four of them, the mockery in his eyes undisguised, and said, Aren't you curious why I suddenly became so relaxed? The four of them looked at each other with a trace of suspicion on their faces. If I didn't pretend to be injured, would you be standing here chatting with me? Would you tell me your identities? If you really think that my divine technique has any side effects, then I can only say that you're too naive. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, Pretending to be injured? The four of them were startled. The malicious spirit licked his lips and grinned. The three of you, it seems that we've been played like monkeys. Unforgivable. The one-eyed man roared. An oppressive and valiant aura rushed towards Qin Feiyong like a tide. Big brother, are you deliberately provoking us? The little girl giggled. Then congratulations, you've successfully provoked us. The cripple grinned. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura of the four of them suddenly surged. They were all perfect war gods. Hui said in shock, For perfect war gods, Sister Fire Lotus, quickly tell your brother to run for his life. Run for your life? Fire Lotus's red lips under the mask slightly curled up with a hint of ridicule. If you anger us, you'll have to pay with your life. Big brother, are you ready? The little girl giggled and looked at Qin Feiyong. Don't disappoint me. Qin Feiyong laughed. Big brother is so stubborn. You're obviously scared to death, but you still have to pretend to be calm, aren't you tired? The little girl giggled, and a blood-red divine power suddenly surged out. At the same time, the cripple's walking stick shook, and a golden light blade swept out. Qin Feiyong looked at the cripple and said, So the person who ambushed us before was you? Don't make it sound so bad. Cough cough. Besides, ambushing is also one of my methods. The cripple grinned. Today is the day of your death. One-eyed dragon roared. Soon you will become a real evil spirit. The evil spirit also laughed sinisterly. The four people's divine power covered the sky and earth, and a destructive aura enveloped all directions. The void and the earth within a radius of tens of thousands of miles were collapsing and sinking. Countless fierce beasts were affected. The other examinees also fled when they heard the news. Accept the judgment of the death god. One-eyed dragon roared. For divine powers like a waterfall, poured down from the sky and blasted towards Qin Feiyong. Not good, really not good. Hui was burning with anxiety. He can act better than us, I really want to kill him. Qin Rushuang glanced at Hui and secretly snorted. I wanted to. Fire Lotus transmitted her voice. If we didn't go to Black Dragon Lake to investigate, we would have been deceived by this person. Think about it. How could someone who dared to rob the Black Dragon's treasure be such a coward? At the same time, in the Ninth Heaven Palace in an ancient hall. Inside the hall it was 100 meters high. Dozens of people sat on the chairs in order, looking at the void in the center of the hall. There were pictures. One of the pictures showed Qin Feiyong's current situation. Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai were also present. The others were all paying attention to all the pictures. In other words, they were paying attention to all the examinees. But Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai had been paying attention to the picture where Qin Feiyong was. And in the depths of their eyes, there was a trace of a sneer. Literature Museum. Chapter 1973. The canyon had been leveled to the ground. The shattered ground trembled violently under the pressure of the four divine powers. Cracks of the abyss spread in all directions like a spider web. How terrifying was it when the four perfect stage gods of war joined forces. However, Qin Feiyong was as calm as Mount Tai. He wasn't nervous at all. Just as the four divine powers fell, Qin Feiyong slowly raised his arm and gently patted the air. Whoosh! A golden divine light appeared and attacked the divine powers of the four. With a loud bang, the divine powers of the four couldn't resist at all. The divine powers turned in the air and engulfed the four of them. Ah! Painful screams resounded through the sky. When the four of them escaped from the divine powers, their bodies were already covered in blood. How is this possible? He can still repel our attacks when we join forces? The four of them looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. Their arrogance from before had completely disappeared. After being so arrogant for so long, I thought you were very powerful. Turns out that this is all you've got. Qin Feiyong said disappointedly. The four of them were furious. Divine powers surged and the aura of divine arts appeared. Even if you have an incredible divine art, it's useless against me. Qin Feiyong's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He jumped into the air and charged at the four of them. You've got guts. Let me fight you. The one-eyed dragon took a step forward and waved his large fan-like hand, slapping towards Qin Feiyong. We shouldn't continue fighting, because this kind of battle is disadvantageous to Qin Dage. Fire Lotus said to herself with a worried face. I agree. Fire Lotus nodded. The four of them were stronger than Qin Feiyong. If they really fought, it was inevitable that they would be injured. Once they were injured, they would definitely bleed. This way, the purple-gold dragon blood would be exposed. They also knew that Qin Feiyong didn't want to expose the six-word divine art too early. However, Qin Feiyong didn't seem to have any other means other than the six-word divine art to be unharmed against the four of them. Therefore, it was reasonable to avoid the battle. Boom! The one-eyed dragon's strength was terrifying. Even with Qin Feiyong's physical body, he felt a fatal threat. But he did not retreat. Because Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang's worries were also his worries, this battle had to be ended quickly. The one-eyed man's fist was about to land on his face. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong disappeared without a trace. Concealment technique. Immediately after, the one-eyed man screamed as a bloody hole appeared on his lower abdomen. Blood was gushing out like a fountain. What happened? Cripple and the other two scanned the void in bewilderment. In the next instant, the malicious ghost let out a miserable howl as a bloody hole appeared in its lower abdomen. What the hell is going on? Could it be a spatial divine object? Jiang Haoyan, this is against the rules. Cripple shouted in anger. No. It can't be a spatial divine item. Because if it's a spatial divine object, it's impossible for him to be so fast. I think he must have mastered some kind of divine art that can make him invisible. The little girl said in a low voice. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt an unprecedented sense of danger behind her. Without thinking, she turned her head and waved her small fist as she punched the void. The divine aura of a perfect stage war god spread in all directions. Under the pressure of the divine aura, the concealment technique immediately dissipated. Qin Feiyong appeared in the void. It's indeed a divine art that can make him invisible. The one-eyed man and the malicious ghost's pupils contracted. But then their eyes were filled with greed. A divine art that can make him invisible was simply the best way to assassinate. Cripple little girl, you must kill him and get that divine art. The one-eyed man shouted as he took out 2 spirit sea pills. He swallowed one and threw the other to the malicious ghost. Of course. Cripple grinned and said. With a teleport, he landed in front of Qin Feiyong and swept the crutch in his hand. Qin Feiyong did not dare to take it head-on. Because the crutch was a divine art. But because it had not recovered, he could not determine the grade of the crutch. If it was a high-grade divine art or a perfect divine art, he would definitely be injured if he took it head-on. These people are going to be serious. Fire Lotus was worried. If Qin Feiyong attacked without holding back, for perfect stage war gods would be as easy as slaughtering chickens and lambs. But now, Qin Feiyong had too many concerns. He did not even use 1/10 of his strength. Just as Cripple attacked, A blood-red sharp blade appeared in front of the little girl. With a monstrous sharpness it charged towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's pupils contracted. The blood-red sharp blade was a few hundred feet long. It was as if it was condensed from blood and had a murderous aura. He could tell at a glance that it was evolved from a perfect divine art. This group of people was indeed not simple. We will return the words you said just now. Even if you have a divine art that defies the natural order, it is useless in front of us. Cripple laughed. The golden crutch in the air made a deafening sound of wind and thunder. Qin Feiyang retreated while glancing at the two. Suddenly, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Using the walk formula and teleporting, he disappeared from the sight of Cripple and Fire Lotus. Not only Cripple and Fire Lotus, but even Cyclops and Fire Lotus were stunned. How did he disappear again? Wait! Cyclops suddenly opened his eyes wide in anger. He looked behind Cripple and shouted, "Cripple, be careful!" Cripple was stunned. But before he could react, a finger poked the back of his head. Immediately after, an aura of death emerged from the depths of Cripple's heart. The price to pay for angering me is not small. Following the cold voice, Cripple could only feel a terrifying murderous aura bursting out from it. Then, his head suddenly exploded in the air like a watermelon. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. This scene left the one-eyed man and the malicious spirit dumbfounded. The girl also froze in the air, her little face full of disbelief. In an instant he actually killed Cripple? Amazing! Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang with eyes full of admiration. However, Qin Feiyang did not show off or feel proud. After killing Cripple, he grabbed the crutch and took another step forward, avoiding the blood-red blade. He landed behind the girl and then swung the crutch towards the girl's head. "Run!" Cyclops roared. The girl quivered. She did not even have the courage to turn around and look at Qin Feiyang. She directly dived and rushed out. She reacted in time and narrowly avoided the attack of the crutch. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and looked at the girl's back. He shook his head and said, "What a pity." The girl stabilized her body and turned around to look at Qin Feiyang. There was nothing else in her eyes, only fear. Until now, she still did not understand how Cripple died. And his speed was even faster than them, a perfect war god. What kind of skill was this? Qin Feiyang glanced at the three of them and said with a smile, "Although it's a pity, it doesn't matter because you will die sooner or later." The girl, Cyclops, and Li Gui could not help but turn pale. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang waved the crutch in his hand and smiled as he walked towards the girl step by step. "Cyclops, so you are here. It took me a long time to find you." But at this moment, an angry shout was heard. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He turned around and saw a white-clothed young man with a murderous aura breaking through the air. He was holding a golden longbow in his hand. His aura was also that of a perfect war god. "Give me your life," the white-robed young man roared. He grabbed the bow with his left hand and pulled the bowstring with his right hand. Divine power gushed out and formed a golden arrow. Whoosh! As the white-robed young man loosened his grip, the golden arrow shattered the void and flew towards the girl at a terrifying speed. Damn it! Seeing this, the girl's expression changed drastically. She quickly dove down and flew towards Cyclops and Li Gui. Fire Lotus and the other two were also surprised. She ran away as soon as she saw this person. Where did this person come from? However, Qin Feiyang frowned. Although the white-robed young man wanted to kill the girl, the arrow was also aimed at him because the white-robed young man was behind him and the girl was in front of him. The arrow arrived in the blink of an eye. It was extremely sharp. Qin Feiyang glanced at the arrow and took a step forward. The arrow immediately passed through his original position. If he did not dodge, this arrow would have shattered his bones. At this moment, the girl had already arrived in front of Cyclops and Li Gui. She grabbed them with each hand and flew away. "Don't run if you have the guts," the white-robed young man said angrily. "Don't be arrogant. We are not afraid of you. It's just that it's not time to fight with you yet." After the girl finished speaking, she disappeared without looking back. Damn it! They escaped again. The white-robed young man stopped in the void and looked in the direction where the three of them disappeared. His eyes were filled with anger. Seeing that the three of them were about to die in your hands, this person suddenly appeared. What a coincidence. Fire Lotus and Huai flew to Qin Feiyong's side and looked at the white-robed young man with a voice transmission. As for Qin Rushuang, she flew towards Cripple's corpse. Yes, what a coincidence. Qin Feiyong muttered and looked at the white-robed young man with flickering eyes. Below, Qin Rushuang searched Cripple's body for a while. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she took out an interspatial ring from Cripple's chest. There's an interspatial ring. This person must have a lot of soul stones. Qin Rushuang muttered and dripped blood on it to claim ownership. She then checked the contents of the interspatial ring. In the sky, the white-robed young man finally retracted his gaze and put away the golden longbow. He looked at Qin Feiyong and the others. Aren't you Zhang Haotian? At this moment, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. That's me. Qin Feiyong smiled and asked, may I know who you are? The white-robed young man said, I'm Nie Yun. Nie Yun? Fire Lotus was stunned and sent a voice transmission. Qin Dage, isn't Nie Yun in cahoots with Cripple and the others? Why does he want to kill them? At the same time, below, Qin Rushuang also looked at Nie Yun in surprise. Qin Feiyong said to himself, he has already revealed his identity. You still don't understand? Fire Lotus raised her eyebrows and sent a voice transmission. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong said to himself on the surface, he wants to kill Cripple and the others. But in reality he wants to save them. So you're saying that the arrow he shot just now was actually aimed at you? Fire Lotus sent a voice transmission. Chapter 1974. Yes. This person must have been hiding and watching from afar. Seeing that the cripple was killed and the Sea of Qi of One-Eyed Dragon and Baleful Ghost were destroyed, he pretended to be their enemy. So his appearance was not a coincidence at all. Qin Feiyong snickered. He's courting death. A murderous intent flashed in Fire Lotus's eyes. No rush. After seeing what I can do, he probably won't act rashly again. Let's wait and see what he's going to do next. Qin Feiyong said telepathically. Okay. Fire Lotus responded secretly. But Huai did not know about this. Qin Rushuang also took the interspatial ring and flew to Qin Feiyong's side. She looked at Qin Feiyong with a smile and said, this cripple has a lot of soul stones. Is that so? Qin Feiyong asked. Yes. I took a rough look. There should be at least 50,000. Qin Rushuang smiled. 50,000. Qin Feiyong and Fire Lotus looked at each other and were overjoyed. What a great harvest! While talking, they were also paying attention to Nie Yun's expression. In fact, these words were deliberately said for Nie Yun to hear. They wanted to see how Nie Yun would react after hearing these words. But in the end, they were disappointed. From beginning to end, all Nie Yun showed was surprise at these soul stones. There was nothing else. Qin Rushuang said telepathically, it seems that this person is very shrewd. Definitely. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hidden in the dark and let the cripple and the other three come out to kill us. Qin Feiyong snickered. Then these soul stones. Qin Rushuang looked at Qin Feiyong, clutching the interspatial ring tightly in her hand. She looked quite nervous. Qin Feiyong thought and said telepathically, give them to great-grandmother and the white-eyed wolf first. Qin Rushuang frowned. I know what you're thinking. However, even if I give you all these soul stones now, do you have the time to refine them? So it's better to give it to great-grandmother and the others. Even though the examination only lasts for 2 days, 2 days outside is equivalent to 2 years in the ancient castle. They might have already made a breakthrough before the end of the assessment. What's more, there's still Nie Yun and One-Eyed Dragon. I think they must have a lot of soul stones on them. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. All right. Qin Rushuang responded and handed the interspatial ring to Qin Feiyong. Huai hurriedly said, Brother Jiang, is there no share for me? You're really thick-skinned. You want soul stones without doing anything? Scram as far as you can. Qin Rushuang laughed angrily. Hearing this, Hui's expression was rather awkward. Qin Feiyong smiled. He raised his head to look at Nie Yun and asked, you said earlier that your name is Nie Yun? Yes. Nie Yun nodded. I seem to have heard that the city lord of Star River City also has a son called Nie Yun. You're not him, are you? Qin Feiyong said in surprise. Yes. Nie Yun nodded. Fire Lotus said disdainfully. He's a standard playboy. Brother, we'd better keep our distance from him. Playboy. Nie Yun was stunned. Qin Feiyong scolded. Fire Lotus, don't be rude. Oh. Fire Lotus nodded, feeling wronged. Qin Feiyong looked at Nie Yun and said apologetically, Brother Nie, my little sister has been a little naughty since she was young. Please forgive her. Brother Jiang, you're too serious. Actually, it's not your sister's fault. Because people like me can't get rid of the reputation of being a playboy. Nie Yun said helplessly. You can't say that. Some rich people can still do it. For example, Brother Nie. Qin Feiyong smiled. Me? Nie Yun was stunned and asked suspiciously, what do you mean? If Brother Nie is really a playboy, then I don't think you'll participate in the Nine Heavens Palaces test. And now, in front of small characters like us, you won't be so humble. Qin Feiyong said. Nie Yun was lost in thought for a while and suddenly laughed. Since I was born, this is the first time I've heard someone praise me like this. But Brother Zhang's last sentence, this Nie doesn't dare to agree. Last sentence? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Nie Yun smiled. Brother Zhang just said that you're all small characters. But do small characters dare to offend Feng Zijuan? Qin Feiyong shook his head with a bitter smile and sighed. We're like newborn calves who aren't afraid of tigers. Now we're regretting it. This one doesn't see any trace of regret on your faces. Moreover, this one has seen Brother Zhang's courage with my own eyes. Nie Yun said. You've seen it with your own eyes? Qin Feiyong and the other three looked at each other and looked at Nie Yun suspiciously. A few days ago, when Brother Zhang bid for the 9th grade elixir fire at the Treasure Pavilion's auction house, this one was also there. When Brother Zhang bid, the whole place was dead silent. In the end, Brother Zhang got the elixir fire at a super low price of 1,500,000. This kind of thing is unheard of before. Nie Yun smiled. It's just pure luck. Qin Feiyong shook his head, blushing with shame. Nie Yun shook his head non-committally. Then he looked around and sighed. Brother Jiang, you see, the Heavenly Dragon Mountain range is full of danger. Why don't we travel together so that we can look after each other? Travel together. Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang could not help but frown. Sure. Qin Feiyong, on the other hand, only pondered for a moment and nodded happily. Fire Lotus said unhappily, Brother, how can you agree to a stranger's request so casually? Nie Yun was also a little surprised. He had thought that this person would refuse, but he did not expect him to agree so easily. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked at Fire Lotus, saying, Girl, you've seen how dangerous this Sky Dragon Mountain range is now. To be honest, I really don't have the strength to protect you all alone. Fire Lotus said unhappily, but you can't just drag a random person along. How can this be called casual? Look at Brother Nie. Does he look like a sinister villain? No. On the contrary, Brother Nie is friendly and powerful. It's our honor that he took the initiative to travel with us. Of course, this is also fate. Brother Nie, don't you think so? Qin Feiyong chuckled. Yes. Nie Yun nodded repeatedly, feeling a little embarrassed by Qin Feiyong's praise. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Since we're traveling together, I hope Brother Nie will take care of us in the next 2 days. Nie Yun hurriedly waved his hand and said, You can't say that, we're taking care of each other. Yes. Taking care of each other. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, Then let's continue on our way. While traveling, not only do we have to pay attention to our surroundings, but we also have to be careful of the underground. Because there are terrifying beasts lurking everywhere in the underground of the Sky Dragon Mountain range, Nie Yun reminded. Qin Feiyong nodded, turned his head and glanced at Fire Lotus and said, Girl, did you see that? Brother Nie reminded us the moment he came, and you still doubt his character? Fire Lotus pursed her lips. And after being repeatedly flattered by Qin Feiyong, Nie Yun couldn't help blushing, but in his heart he was laughing. To gain trust so quickly, it seemed that this person wasn't much, just that his methods were a little tyrannical. Qindage, what are you doing? Keeping him by your side is simply a ticking time bomb. Fire Lotus transmitted her voice. Is there no danger if we chase him away? I'm afraid the danger is greater. After all, it's easy to dodge an open spear, but difficult to guard against a hidden arrow. Besides, right now, we really need a helper. You and Qin Rushuang are basically idlers in this assessment. Because your cultivation is too weak, even if you expose your undead energy, it won't have any fundamental effect. And Hui clearly doesn't want to take action. As for me, I don't want to expose too much of my strength. Therefore, Nieyun's arrival is actually a good thing for us. After all, he has the cultivation of a perfect war god. As long as he doesn't encounter monarch-level beasts, he can deal with them all by himself, Qin Feiyong secretly said. Fire Lotus suddenly said, "So you want to beat him at his own game?" "That's right. This person is following us because he wants to plot against us behind our backs. Then why don't we take advantage of this and make him our helper?" Qin Feiyong secretly laughed. "Even so, I still think it's inappropriate. After all, his strength is too strong. You and that mysterious Hui don't need to worry about it, but Sister Rushuang and I, if he suddenly attacks us, we won't be able to defend ourselves." Fire Lotus transmitted her voice. "It's okay. I will keep an eye on him. If he really dares to attack you, I guarantee that he will become a corpse before he can do anything," Qin Feiyong secretly said. Hearing this, Fire Lotus's anxious heart finally calmed down. Nieyun suddenly asked, "Brother Jiang, why did Cripple and the others want to kill you?" "Maybe because we are weak and easy to bully." "What about you? Why did you chase after them?" Qin Feiyong said. "These guys are very despicable. The last time they entered Star River City, they cheated me of a large amount of divine gems, so I have always wanted to kill them. But these guys are very cunning, I let them escape every time. Just now it was a good opportunity, but unfortunately, I let them escape again." Nieyun shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyong smiled. "Brother Nie, don't be anxious. They can escape, but they can't escape. Sooner or later you will meet them." "Yes." Nieyun nodded. "Wait." Fire Lotus suddenly braked, stopping in her tracks. There was a trace of surprise in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong and the others looked at her suspiciously. "Nothing." Fire Lotus shook her head and continued walking. Qin Feiyong and the others were baffled. Fire Lotus pondered for a moment, then asked through voice transmission, "Qin Dage, is there one more person who hasn't shown up?" "Who?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "Didn't Gao Xiaolong remind us to be especially careful of Nieyun, Hongping, Zhuge, Qihong, Zhang Yunfei, and Chao Zhiyun last night? Now that Nieyun and the others have met, what about Zhang Yunfei?" Fire Lotus thought to herself. So it was him. Don't worry. He will show up sooner or later. He might even be hiding somewhere watching us right now, Qin Feiyong said through voice transmission. Fire Lotus inadvertently scanned the surrounding forest, a trace of worry in her eyes. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."